Yo, it's your boy Ryan, Northwest Sports Fanatics, back at you with a new video. Today is Sunday, December 28th, 2025, with your boy Ryan and the Northwest Sports Fanatics. Make sure you guys subscribe to the channel. Smash that like button either now or on your way out. Donate to your boy if you can. Cash App $ORIONNWSF or the YouTube Super Chat right here. Sunday Night Football. And we got a good one. Chicago Bears, 11-4, 5-3 on the road. 11-4 San Francisco 49ers, 4-2 at home. A lot on the line as far as NFC supremacy. Can't wait to be able to get into this one. And again, we will have kickoff here in roughly 5 minutes. So let's cue up the music, take a look at the thumb, and let's get settled in for Sunday Night Football. Happy Sunday and happy holidays, everyone. More exciting wide receivers in the game, top 25 receiver and DJ Moore, and on the right, arguably the best all-around player on offense that can run the football and catch, obviously, screen passes and take them to the house. It is Run CMC Christian McCaffrey. I've been talking about both of these teams for about a month, that we know the Seahawks and the Rams and the Eagles are the top three teams in the NFC. But for whatever reason, if they have injuries or they play bad and you match up with either one of these teams in the playoffs, the Bears or the Niners, you could lose. Obviously, we know, there are going to be 7 teams that end up making it on the NFC and 7 teams on the AFC, and it looks like it's going to come down to the final week for the Buccaneers and the Panthers for the Battle of the Bads. Same thing goes for the Steelers and the Ravens. But these two teams are not like those teams at the bottom. You definitely have to put them in the same category as the Jaguars and the Houston Texans. And again, we know that, you got the Patriots and the Broncos and the Bills at the top. But again, just like the Bears and the Niners, if the Jags and the Texans can continue to stay hot, it is possible, that these teams that are maybe 4th or 5th best, in the NFC and the AFC could end up upsetting someone as we get into the playoff run. And that's what makes the NFL so exciting. You just don't really know. And again, we are blessed with this amazing matchup. San Francisco is up by 4.5 on the Vegas line as we get closer and closer to kickoff. We'll see if that gets adjusted. But I'm definitely excited to be able to take a peek. We did the Texan game yesterday. We saw that they are the real deal Holyfield. The Chargers kind of look like maybe they're closer to the Steelers and the Ravens rather than closer to the Jaguars and the Texans. And again, there's nothing wrong with being the 4th, 5th best team, in the NFC or the AFC. You don't got any pressure. And again, based on what we get in this particular matchup, we know that first place is still on the line. So even though, based off the current rankings, depending on how things go today and obviously next week, San Francisco has a chance to be a 1 seed. So it's not just a guarantee, that the Seahawks are going to be the one, and they do match up at the end of the year. So it's going to be very, very exciting to be able to see who's going to win this NFC matchup. And overall, who's going to end up winning the NFC or the AFC. Eagles obviously played some great defense, got some injured players back to really make it tough on Josh Allen if you ended up watching that afternoon matchup. And again, we are slowly but surely trying to kind of sit and wait patiently to see how the picture is going to play out. And I'm very excited about this game here today. Hopefully everyone is having a fantastic weekend. Dark Passenger in the building, Marine Bean in the building, Andrea in the building, Captain in the building. And again, some teams, are contenders. Others are pretenders, and we're definitely starting to, separate those contenders and pretenders here in the last 2 weeks of the regular season. But buckle up. We're going to get a good one here. And both teams, kind of play the same type of way. You want to run the football effectively, and you want to play good defense. And if you're able to run the football effectively and play good defense, and you're able to get a few turnovers through the passing game or through fumbles in the running game, this game could obviously go either way. San Francisco, should be favored, being at home. But again, we have seen the Bears go on the road and play very, very well. Ben Johnson definitely is going to be in consideration of one of the, coach of the year spots. There's very many individuals that you could obviously put in that running. And again, same thing goes on the flip side with Kyle Shanahan and Robert Saleh as defensive coordinator for the Niners. I mean, this team has been banged up quite a bit, like the Buccaneers. But the difference is, they have good coaching. We do not. They have a defense. We do not. And again, if you can stop the football and you got good defense, especially late in the year, anything is possible to get hot and healthy at the right time. And it's possible that one of these two teams, if not both, could end up going on a dangerous run once we hit that playoff push. We're going to be shooting for 100 likes, 100 on the Dono train, and 5 to 15 subs. Let's get it, baby. And shout out to my boy Brooks Beats with the best beats on YouTube. And, and for as much as we have been talking about these two teams, just like the Jags and the Texans, within the last month, no one really anticipated these two teams being this good at this point of the year. And again, at the beginning of the year, it felt like a lot of the primetime matchups were fire, right? Sunday night, Monday night, Thursday night, they couldn't miss. But then for whatever reason, as we got into October and November, it definitely hit a wall where a lot of the matchups were very one-sided. But as we've gotten into December and we're getting closer to January, I feel like the matchups are starting to heat up again. And this is definitely one of the top 3 matchups in all of December. And again, it's definitely, two teams that mirror each other very similarly. And I can't wait to be able to see if the Bears can find a way to win on the road to prove that they belong with Ben Johnson calling the plays. We know Caleb Williams is still a work in progress, but they don't necessarily win a lot of the games because of just him. It's typically with the running game and specifically the defense and the special teams. And obviously with the Niners, they've had a lot of injuries, no Fred Warner. Obviously, they don't have Nick Bosa. They traded away Dre Greenlaw and Talanoa Hufanga to the Broncos. It's pretty much a no-name defense coached up by Robert Saleh. But with that being said, with a lot of these no-name guys or lower-name individuals, they're still playing as if Nick Bosa, Fred Warner, Talanoa Hufanga, and Dre Greenlaw are still on the field. And respect. Again, it definitely takes really excellent coaching to be able to bring players up. And Kyle Shanahan has had his work cut out with them. Brock Purdy's been injured throughout the season, George Kittle, Christian McCaffrey. And again, they still find ways to plug and play talent. And again, on the Niners and Rams, you can pretty much plug anyone in at quarterback, running back, wide receiver, and tight end. And they're going to be effective under the scheme under Shanahan and Sean McVay. And I can't wait to be able to see how this one will play out. 1 seed at the moment is Seattle at 13-3, Bears in the 2, 11-4, with Philly at 11-5. And again, we are getting very, very close here to kickoff. And we got Fred Warner on the mic, getting the Niner fan base excited for the matchup. And let's take a quick look on the analytics here on the matchup predictor. So things have shifted within the last 15 minutes. So they have 61.1% favored for the San Francisco 49ers. But again, that doesn't mean the Bears can't show up and show out here this evening. Let's get it, baby. Number 1 seed still in the balance. And again, there was at one point 3 teams that wanted it desperately with the Rams, Niners, and Seahawks. But it kind of is looking like it may be Seahawks or Niners at this point, with just 2 weeks left. Even though the Rams are going to have the easier schedule the rest of the way. Again, we will see what they look like tomorrow on Monday Night Football against the Falcons. Yeah, based on the analytics that I saw, that was on ESPN. So if you saw it on NFL.com or somewhere else, the number may be a little bit different. And Cairo Santos kicked 66 yards to Sky Moore, who's been pretty productive since leaving the Chiefs and joining the Niners. And a nice 25-yard return. First down and 10 at the San Francisco 24. Purdy, picked, tipped. He's at the 30, the 20, the 10, the 5, touchdown, Bears. And just like that, a pick 6 right out of the gates on Brock Purdy. And again, like I mentioned, If you can play great defense, which the Bears have proven they can do on the road, and you can run the football effectively, this could end up being a little bit closer than people think. And it's not often that you start off a game with a tip pass turning into an interception for a touchdown. Fantastic. Extra point is up and good. 7-0 Bears. And again, I'm not shocked. I've been anticipating this matchup for weeks and weeks and weeks. Both of these teams, we're kind of sitting in that 4th, 5th position, even though the Niners could still be the 1 seed. And again, same thing with the Jags and the Texans. A lot of the love in the pub is going towards the Broncos, Patriots, and the Bills. But you can never, count out those other teams that are getting hot and healthy that aren't really getting the love from the media. Just like that, 7-0 Chicago. A lot of the fans there in San Francisco are in shock. But again, there's plenty of game to be able to get this game tied up, and it's going to be very, very competitive. One thing about the Bears, they got, a great secondary that can end up doing things like this. Defense has always been something that the Bears are, kind of known for. Obviously, the offense at times will be a little bit of a work in progress. But again, when you can work together and be in the right place at the right time, and you can end up getting a touchdown like Edwards did right there, TJ, I see you. Beautiful. And again, these are the type of things that you're going to need, if you're going to end up having to win a game on the road against an opponent that is equal to you, if not slightly better based off roster. And again, if you can end up getting a pick six, a fumble for a touchdown, a blocked field goal, a blocked punt, these are the little things that you need when you're an underdog to kind of even the flow of the game and get Uncle Mo on your side. And so far, Chicago is feeling it. 7-0 Bears. Tyler in the building. What's good? Fantastic start. And I don't think we've seen a pick six to start a game all year. I imagine there's been a lot of games that, some of us, don't have televised in our particular area, unless you have like a Sunday ticket. But there's not too many games that have started off with a pick six. And again, we will see now if the Niners can respond after that Brock Purdy mistake. Brock Purdy, short right to Ricky Pearsall, and complete. 2nd down and 10 at the San Francisco 35. Yeah, we'll see what they decide to do. Obviously, it's going to come down to the Steelers and Ravens, on whoever wins that game gets in. Same thing with the Buccaneers and the Panthers. And then obviously for positioning, Niners and Seattle, depending on what happens here tonight. So. $14:45 in the first quarter, 14:40 now. 7-0 Bears with a pick six to start the game off. And again, when you can do a tip drill to the highest level, it definitely knows that your players are locked in. 2nd down and 10, and McCaffrey runs off that right side. Not a whole lot of blocking there. 3-yard gain. 3rd down and 7 at the San Francisco 38. CJ Gardner-Johnson, the safety for the Bears there with the tackle. Third down and 7, shotgun set. Purdy, short middle to Jake Tonges. He catches it. Nice 18-yard gain there by Tonges. First down, Niners. Bang, bang, Niner gang. First down and 10 at the Chicago 44. I mean, Niners, they just need to, get past the mistake that they had and just play the way they played all year. run the football very heavily with Christian McCaffrey. Eventually, that'll open up the passing game. You're going to have to be able to get the no-name defense on the Niners to make some plays, to be able to slow them down. And you're probably going to need, a pick six, a fumble for a touchdown, a block punt, block field goal, or something of that nature to match what Chicago did at some point in the game. But, I don't think they really need to go outside of, what they normally do. And again, it's not like Purdy was staring down a receiver and the guy jumped the route. I mean, it was off a tip. So, again, it was kind of a lucky play, right place, right time, and a very unlucky play for Purdy, who normally doesn't start off the game with a pick six. So McCaffrey runs for a 1-yard gain. First down, Niners. Bang, bang, Niner gang. Move the chains. But I assume that this could end up going down to, whoever has the ball last. They're both 11-4. Niners are 4-2 at home. Bears are 5-3 on the road. Ben Johnson is one of the best, play callers in the game. And to go from worst to first, is pretty amazing stuff. And to see the decline of the Lions and how much better the Bears got with Ben Johnson with, realistically, not really a lot of, different pieces from last year to this year. Obviously, rookies and a few free agents, but I don't think anyone anticipated the Bears, making this leap in 1 year. Purdy, short middle, Christian McCaffrey, and that's batted down by Booker. Second down and 10 at the Chicago 34. And if you're just tuning in to the matchup, we ended up getting a pick six on the first play of the game. TJ Edwards got a tip and took it all the way to the house. And again, we didn't anticipate that, but that's what makes football beautiful. Shotgun set. Purdy, short right to Jake Tonga since Kittle is out. Third down and 2 at the Chicago 26. Brock Purdy going deep to Demarcus Robinson. Oh my, and it's caught. First down, Niners. First and goal at the 1. And they're going to hand it off to Christian McCaffrey. Going to be 7-7 here in just a moment. Oh man, Bucs are terrible. We couldn't even beat the Dolphins today. Our defense is bottom 3 overall. We played terrible in the last 2 months. Honestly, we don't deserve to make the playoffs, and on top of the defense being terrible, not being able to stop the run or the pass, Baker has been throwing some bad interceptions late in games to kind of seal the deal. Really, the defense is the reason why we're losing. But again, when Baker ends up making mistakes on top of not being able to play defense, it's not a good recipe. So, we'll find out if they can even win at home against the Panthers next week. But honestly, if the Panthers get in, they'll be more entertaining and play better. Back of the end zone, wide open, touchdown, Jake Tonga, which would have been George Kittle if he didn't end up having the injury. And just like that, 7-6, extra point is up and good. This one's going to be great. This is going to come down to hopefully whoever has the ball last. And again, this is one matchup that we have great coaches all the way around, with Shanahan, Salah for the Niners, and Ben Johnson for the Bears. You typically aren't going to have this many good coaches, in one place at one time. And I can't wait to be able to see, one coach is going to be thinking checkers and the other is going to be thinking chess, but you just can't get too ahead of yourself. But so far, so good. Rebounding from the Brock Purdy mistake, and just like that, scoring very, very quickly. 7-7, Bears and Niners. Chief with Chief in the building. What's good? Judah in the building. What's good? Yeah, and again, when you're playing good football, it. But again, if you're ranked, bottom 3 or dead last in some categories on defense, and Tampa's normally known for being a pretty good defensive team, but, the collapse is real. And honestly, I think a lot of the players, offense or defense or special teams, they're not really playing hard, for Todd Bowles. I think, they're not intentionally trying to lose, but again, I think that, after what we've seen this year, blowing it up and firing everyone and starting over, it more than likely is going to happen. I'd be very shocked, if the offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, head coach, which is, partly Todd Bowles and a few others, I don't think they're going to be there. And, it's time for a change. Sometimes you need a change of scenery. And again, you've accomplished only so much. And, it stings, to be able to be very, very good in the first month and a half, 2 months of the season, and then be absolutely terrible in the last 2 months. And I'm not even kidding. It's like every week in the last 2 months, we've been terrible. And, we've had injuries, and that's a part of it. But a lot of it is coaching, play calling, and just the lack of being able to tackle and defend. And, and maybe the message from Bowles going in one ear, out the other, it kind of feels like he's lost the locker room. And again, we still control our own destiny, regardless, if Tampa or, Carolina makes it. Realistically, neither one is going to win a playoff game, even if they host it. And same thing goes with the Steelers and the Ravens. They can end up winning the division, but it's very clear that those are the two worst divisions in football. And, we'll see where it goes. Maybe the Ravens and Steelers would have a better chance than the Panthers, but if the Bucs get in, they will definitely be the worst team in the playoffs overall, which is a kind of a sad thing to say. But again, when you have a chance to be able to win the NFC South for the 5th year in a row, even if you're playing terrible ball, you want to have that accomplishment, but also you want to be able to try to be competitive, but it's been terrible. So we'll see where it goes, but at least we have a chance next week against Carolina, and we'll see how the cookie crumbles at that point. Yeah, but also, too, with the Bills, they had a lot of mistakes earlier in that game, and they were actually lucky to kind of get it to that point where it was close at the end. They didn't really deserve to win that game, so I don't really have an issue, with what they did late and whatnot. I still think the Bills are a very, very good team, just like Philadelphia. And, this is the regular season, but once we get into the playoffs, obviously we know teams can turn it up on another level. And again, I don't know if anyone anticipated it being that low scoring between the Bills and the Eagles. If anything, mistakes for the Bills cost them that game in the first half, and the Eagles played great defense, and they're starting to look like, they would have a chance to repeat, even though the offense may not be as good as last year's. And Eddie Pinheiro kicked 66 yards. Josh Blackwell with a nice 30-yard return there, the corner for the Bears. And now it's 1st down and 10 at the Chicago 29. Shotgun set. Caleb Williams, short right to Cole Kmet. Nice 7-yard gain. 2nd down and 3 at the Chicago 36. 7-7 here early in the first quarter. Less than 11 minutes to go here in the first quarter. Eleven and 4 Chicago Bears, 11 and 4 San Francisco 49ers, 5 and 3 on the road for the Bears, 4 and 2 at home for the Niners. Very equally matched here. Shotgun set, Caleb Williams, incomplete. Short left to DeAndre Swift, the intended running back. 3rd down and 3 at the Chicago 36. And again, everyone thinks it's always about, quarterbacks and running backs and wide receivers and tight ends. But, if you really watch football closely, O-line and D-line dictate the outcome of a game, 90% of the time. You got to win the line of scrimmage and win that battle up front. And it is really about O-line, D-line, defense coaching, and play calling. And if you don't have those boxes checked off, chances are you're going to lose. 3rd down and 3. Caleb Williams going short right to Jade Walker. And that's going to be incomplete. 4th down and 3 at the Chicago 36. And this should be a punt, you would assume, for the Bears. Got a flag on the play. We'll see if this is on the Niners. Oh, it's on the Bears. Is it an eligible man downfield? This is still going to turn into a punt there for Chicago. Like, sub, donate, comment, share. If you haven't smashed that like button yet, please do. Help us get to 100 likes, 100 on that dono train. And 5 to 15 subs. Let's get it, baby. Flag is picked up. No flag on the play. And shout out to my boy Brooks Beats with the best beats on YouTube. Torrey Taylor with the punt, 64 yards. And that's going to turn into a touchback. First down and 10 at the San Francisco 20. $9:59 left in the first quarter, 7-7 as we go to a commercial break. And if you're just tuning in, Brock Purdy's first pass of the game, tipped interception. TJ Edwards ended up picking that off the tip, 34 yards to the house, 7-0 Bears off the first play of the game. And then obviously with San Francisco and Brock Purdy going to Jake Tonga since Kittle is out. 1 yard pass from the 1 yard line. Eddie Pinheiro with the extra point, up and good. 9 plays, 65 yards, and we're sitting at a 7-7 tie. Go over some of the scores as we're waiting for the commercial break. We got the Bengals beating the Cardinals 37-14. Browns beating the Steelers 13-6. The Battle of the Bads. Saints beat the Titans 34-26. Jags winning over the Colts 23-17. Dolphins beating the Buccaneers 20-17. Patriots winning 42-10 in a blowout against the Jets. Seahawks winning against the Panthers 27-10. Giants beating the Raiders 34-10 with the Battle of the Bads. Defensive battle between the Eagles and the Bills. Eagles winning by 1, 13-12. On Thursday, on Christmas, we had the Cowboys beating the Commanders 30-23. Vikings blowing out the Lions 23-10 and eliminating Detroit from playoff contention. And then the Broncos beating the Chiefs 20-13. And then yesterday we ended up doing a great game between the Texans and the Chargers. Texans punched their ticket to the playoffs, winning 20-16. And then the Ravens winning in the battle of the backup quarterback battle, winning 41-24 over the Packers. And then we'll be live tomorrow between the 11-4 Rams and the 6-9 Falcons. That'll be the stream for Monday Night Football. Shotgun set, Purdy, short middle to Jake Tongas, and man, he is getting a lot of looks. You know, every single catch that Jake is getting, that's normally where Kittle is going to be racking up the yards. But again, you can pretty much plug and play anybody at quarterback, running back, wide receiver, and tight end on this team, and they definitely have shown that over the last 5 to 10 years that is definitely true. Shotgun set, McCaffrey running off that right side, but Tremaine Edmonds says not today. No gain. Second down and 10 at the San Francisco 31. About 9 minutes left here in the first quarter, knotted up at 7, a very even matchup. And normally we don't see even matchups like this on Sunday night, Monday night, and Thursday night. I felt like that Eagles and Bills matchup was very, very even as well. And obviously the outcome of the score and how the game played out showed that was true. You know, you would have assumed that maybe they would have gotten into the 20s, but it definitely was a defensive battle for both. Shotgun set, Purdy scrambling to that right side, trying to make something out of nothing and getting about 4 yards there. Joe Tryon-Shoyinka, the former Buccaneer, with the coverage. 3rd down and 6 at the San Francisco 35. And after Monday Night Football between the Rams and the Falcons, we'll probably have Tuesday off unless I do USC's bowl game for the Alamo Bowl. I may or may not do that. And then Wednesday, obviously on New Year's Eve, which will be my dad's birthday as well, the Ducks and Texas Tech play at 9 a.m. So we'll be doing that stream very, very early. And then obviously continuing to do more of those college football playoff games as well. So really looking forward to this week and seeing how things play out, for the end of the regular season in the NFL here within the next week and a half, and then the college football playoff in full swing. Purdy incomplete to Tonges. Seems like that's the only guy he feels comfortable throwing to here early. 4th and 6 at the San Francisco 35. And this should be a punt here for Thomas Morstead. 49-yard punt. And that's going to be a fair catch by Devin Duvernay. 1st down and 10 at the Chicago 16. So after getting quick points early for the pick 6 by the Bears and Purdy going deep and then, getting the touchdown to Tonges, defenses are starting to settle in here pretty slightly, but sure, slowly but surely, but they're starting to do it. And again, now we got 7:44 left in the first, and we'll see if the Bears can get a touchdown on this drive or at least get a field goal and get some points. Yeah, Kittle is out. And he's got an ankle issue. Mid to low ankle sprain. Because pretty much every, target that Tonges is getting, that would have went to Kittle. So, could have been a Kittle touchdown if he was available. But again, you can pretty much plug and play anybody, any type of tight end, any type of running back or wide receiver. Obviously, they have taken the next level, with getting these running backs that were kind of running back by committee before they finally ended up getting Christian McCaffrey, the best all-around running back in the game. But, as you have seen, you pretty much can implement with that specific type of offense. You could be a super athletic player or even a guy that, maybe a little bit slower that may not be able to be available and an impact player on every team. But if you get into a scheme that suits that player, like with the Rams and the Niners and what they have available with Kyle Shanahan and Sean McVay, you're able to see guys like Tonges break out and be an impact player. 1st down and 10 at the 16. One guy there with a 2-yard run. Luke Gifford with the tackle. 2nd down and 8 at the Chicago team. Like, sub, donate, comment, share. If you haven't smashed that like button yet, please do. Help us get to 100 likes, 100 on that dono train, and 5 to 15 subs. Let's get it. Bye-bye. Shout out to my boy Brooks Beats with the best beats on YouTube. Pretty impressed, considering if you're looking at a lot of these names, at the bottom of the screen, you may not really recognize a lot of them. And it shows you how good of a job Robert Saleh has done with all the injuries with Bosa and Warner and the departure of Greenlaw and Hufanga. Monin guy there again, running towards that left guard for a 4-yard gain. Davis and Huff with the tackle. 3rd down and 4 at the Chicago 22. All right, captain says we're at 20, 30 more to go to be able to get to 50. Shotgun set, Caleb Williams, short left to DJ Moore, and that's going to be incomplete. Brown with the coverage, and that's going to be 4th down and 4 at the Chicago 22. So after seeing some explosion of points, now the defenses are settling in, and it's getting kind of difficult to even get a few first downs here, even more just getting points. So again, it is going to be a war. It's going to be a battle. And again, every big play in the second half will be magnified, especially based on how the game is going at this point. And now DJ Moore, after that pass going incomplete, Bears will be punting here momentarily. Torrey Taylor with the punt, 55 yards. And Sky Moore, the former Chief, with a nice 11-yard return. Seems like he's found a good home there in San Fran. 1st down and 10 at the San Francisco 34. Now, I feel all his beats are bangers, and slappers. Like, again, when I hear his stuff, I know instantly it's him, and, anybody that puts their love and passion into what they're doing, then it makes me even more excited about, what he's doing, because, it's a self-expression of him. He's not trying to, be someone that he's not. He's trying, not to, make beats for just a specific artist. He's just trying to be able to express himself. And again, I'm definitely going to be supporting him through and through his dreams and goals as well. 1st down and 10 at the San Francisco 34. Purdy under center has settled in after that pick 6. McCaffrey. Wow, look at the juke and bouncing it to the outside. Wow, look at run CMC. Breaking tackles left and right. Unbelievable 41-yard run. And again, there's not very many backs, that can shift, from the left to the right, and being able to stop on a dime and not, tear anything, and being able to adjust, his body in specific ways, and being able to tightrope that sideline. He's a very difficult guy to bring down. And again, probably the best dual threat, running and catching out of the backfield. And again, when Christian McCaffrey is healthy, it's very difficult to be able to stop him with just 1 or 2 guys, as evident there with that play. And now Wright for the Bears is injured, and that is not good news. Hopefully he's okay. He's walking off on his own power, so that's good. 1st down and 10 at the Chicago 25. Obviously, we know when someone is as athletic as Christian McCaffrey, injuries are always going to play a part. Obviously he's a genetic freak. Dad being Ed McCaffrey, former right receiver there for the Broncos, and he picked up all of those great genetics there, and learning all the secrets on diet and exercise, and learning from a pro athlete as your dad, but obviously has surpassed his dad and some, and again, a very magical player to watch, when he's on the field, regardless if you're rooting for the Niners or not. And Brian Robertson Jr. there getting a nice 15-yard run to give Run CMC a quick breather. 1st and goal, Chicago 10. Bang, bang, Niner gang. They're knocking on the door again. And again, if you're a Hawk, or a Ram, or an Eagle, fan, these two teams, you do not want to see them, specifically the Niners. Obviously we know the Bears are going to be even more of an underdog than the Niners, but again, the Niners could still be a 1 seed, depending on what happens today and if they beat the Seahawks next week. So, even though we have these teams normally around 4th or 5th, with obviously the Seahawks, Rams, and Eagles at the top, Niners still could end up being a 1 seed as he dives into the end zone. Brock Purdy, touchdown Niners. That was clean. And again, we know the Chicago Bears don't have the same type of offense as the Niners. Their defense is pretty good, but again, they're going to need extra things to happen for them to keep up. We already got one pick six, but they may need another, or a fumble for a touchdown to be able to keep pace with this 49er team. Now look at the speed by Brock Purdy and the awareness to dive into the end zone. A nice 10-yard touchdown run. Eddie Pinheiro, extra point is up and good. And just like that, after being down 7-0 on the first play of the game, Purdy has erased that pick six from his memory. And now, just like that, 14-7, bang, bang, Niner gang. Very impressive. And again, the NFC West by far is the best division in football. Seahawks, Rams, or Niners. Again, to say that the Niners could actually make the Super Bowl, would sound very, very weird, at the, beginning to middle of the year. But now, seeing how they're playing as of late, it feels like they got as good of a chance as, any of the teams in the NFC. Seahawks, Rams, Eagles are fantastic. Bears and Niners are playing great football. And really, the only thing that you could say other than, those teams is looking at who else. We don't really believe in the Packers. We don't believe in the Buccaneers or the Panthers as well. So Panthers, Bucks, Packers, I don't assume anything is going to happen with those. And then obviously the same thing goes with the Steelers, the Ravens, and the Chargers. You might be able to make the playoffs, but can you actually win a game? And, for some of these teams, it's definitely going to be extra challenge, especially when you get these other teams that are getting hot and healthy at the right time. 14-7 Niners. We're at 23,344 subscribers, 56 to get to 23,400. Let's get it, baby. Fast-paced game. 14-7 Niners. All right, Bears. Let's see what you can do. We obviously know Caleb Williams is better than Justin Fields, but still, he's got a long ways to go. To be able to, even though they did win the division, so you have to give them credit. Obviously we know the Vikings and the Packers and the Lions, weren't as good as they were last year. And, the Packers are stumbling into the playoffs, beat up and injured. And, we know that Caleb, obviously was fantastic at USC, even though, there was some concerns with his completion percentage and, some mechanics, with his footwork and whatnot. But, if you can run the ball effectively and have good defense, you don't really need Caleb to do too much, besides just not turn the ball over, kind of be a game manager, at this point early in his career. And if he's able to be an effective game manager, sometimes that's enough to win games. Obviously with an 11-4 record, it proves that, he can get it done. And Pinheiro kick 67 yards and a nice 25-yard return there by Josh Blackwell, the corner for the Bears. First down and 10 at the Chicago 23. See if they can get DJ Moore some opportunities here. Caleb Williams going short left to Colston Loveland, the tight end, and complete. Second down and 10 at the Chicago 23. Caleb starting 1 for 5. And again, you expect your number one pick, to be better than that. But again, the Niner defense obviously is coached up to the fullest with Robert Saleh at the helm. Bethune there with the coverage. for San Fran. 2nd down and 10 at the Chicago 23. Great awareness by Bethune to be able to tip that away. We got less than 5 minutes to go here in the first quarter. 11-4 Bears, 11-4 Niners. It's a good one. Shotgun set. Caleb Williams going to Luther Burden the third. Now it's caught. First down, Bears. Good yak yards after the catch and a little spin move at the sideline there. Winters with the coverage. First down and 10 for the Chicago Bears. 1st and 10 at the Chicago 33. $37 receptions, 490 yards, 13.2 average, and 1 tutty. Hand off to DeAndre Swift with blockers in front. Ooh, and runs over a Niner. Nice 8-yard run there by DeAndre Swift. 2nd down and 2 at the Chicago 41. Yeah, no Rome Odunze, obviously, for the Bears, and no George Kittle for the Niners. So other individuals will have to step up, and you would assume, DJ Moore will have some opportunities to be able to get in the end zone if Caleb has time. Man in motion, DJ Moore. Shotgun set. Pressure off the edge. Screen pass with 3 blockers in front. Nice job there by Cole Kmet. That was a good play call there by Ben Johnson. Very similar to the plays that they would call there in Detroit when he was the OC, but we got a flag on the play. Personal foul. Illegal block below the waist. Low block on the Niners. And that's going to be an automatic first down, Chicago. Bethune, after getting that nice tip for an incomplete pass, ends up being the... Yeah, I don't know about that penalty. That just looks like he's just going for the tackle and whatnot, but... Shotgun set. Caleb going deep to Luther Burden. Touchdown, Bears. There we go. And that's exactly what we want to see. And Caleb would make those type of throws at USC. But again, apparently he can make them in the NFL as well. Luther Burden the third, dancing and romancing in the end zone. And again, for a team, that is an underdog in this game against the Niners, again, they're showing why they're 11-4. They're showing why they're NFC North champs over the Packers, Vikings, and the Lions. That was a very impressive throw by Caleb Williams. Finally, he has time to be able to, throw that deep ball, and he throws it perfectly, even getting a little bit hit there late on the play, but it didn't affect the throw one bit. That was pretty. Extra point is up. Almost blocked there, and it is good. 14-14 all, but we have a flag on the play. Leverage penalty here. All right, extra point is up and good, and that'll be enforced, obviously, on the kickoff. And I'm happy that the Bears were able to respond. Again, you just want to be able to see a competitive matchup, and it shows you how deep the NFC is. They were the better conference for a good chunk of the year. AFC has definitely caught up based on what the Jags and Texans have done, similar to the Bears and Niners. May not be the teams in the top 3 that get a lot of the love and pub like the Hawks, Rams, and Eagles, or the Broncos, Patriots, and the Bills, but equally, the Jags and the Texans, the Niners and the Bears are in great position, here in 2025 as we transition into 2026 to be able to make a deep run. Very impressed. 14-14 all. both these teams have good defenses, but again, offenses are king at this point. And we got 2:58 left in the first quarter. Fun game, and I knew it would be. Like, sub, donate, comment, share. If you haven't smashed that like button yet, please do. Help us get to 100 likes. 100 on that dono train and 5 to 15 subs. Let's get it, baby. Not JT in the building. What's good? That's a good question. I don't know if it is the first time. Yeah, I tried to do a quick search, to see if there was any information on, previous years, if there has been, a first pick versus a Mr. Irrelevant. The only problem is normally when you have a Mr. Irrelevant, they're not a quarterback. So that's what makes this kind of a special matchup. And I don't know if it's the first time it's ever happened, but it's definitely not happened often because normally the last player is not a quarterback typically. And then on top of that, they're normally not a starter in the NFL and actually one of the, top 10 or 15 quarterbacks in the league. So a very special situation. And it shows you, even if you're Mr. Irrelevant and Brock Purdy, you can play on the same level as a first pick in the draft, and if not better. I would imagine most people would rather have Purdy than Caleb at quarterback, but again, it also is a big part of Kyle Shanahan's scheme. You put Brock Purdy on the Browns or the Jets or the Raiders, he wouldn't be anything. So you also have to keep that in mind as well. But you could also say that for Caleb. You bring him as first pick to the Jets, Raiders, or Browns. He's not doing anything either. So he's being able to feed off of Ben Johnson, just like Kyle Shanahan is helping Brock Purdy. So, sometimes it's not, where you are at. It's also who's coaching you and supporting cast as well. Shotgun set, Purdy, incomplete, short left to Ricky Pearsall. Second down and 10 at the San Francisco 25. No, that was just through the NFL. Normally I'll look, to be able to see if they have any kind of cool, posts that are just more than just, a normal, this team is playing this team, with a little picture of each guy on there and whatnot. So, every once in a while they'll end up having something that's made and whatnot. But yeah, I never use AI on anything. So I'm not one of those people that uses AI ever. I've never used it and I never will. Everything is just going to be strictly from the NFL. And then obviously the thumbnails will all be created by me. Brock Purdy going deep left to Ricky Pearsall and caught. Wow. 30-yard gain. First down, Niners. Plenty of time back there for Brock Purdy. And that's first down and 10 at the Chicago 45. Toby in the building. What's good? Yeah, and even though the Jags didn't, play very well against the Colts, Toby, we still feel, they're just like the Texans, very dangerous, just like these two teams, the Bears and the Niners. And, I can't wait to be able to see how this all plays out, not only today, but the rest of the season. Christian McCaffrey up the middle and getting about 7 yards there. Second down and 3 at the Chicago 38. TJ Edwards, the linebacker for the Bears, with the tackle. great game, 14-14 all. Starting it off with, defense, which you guys know I love. Pick 6 off a tipped, ball from Brock Purdy, taken to the house. And then obviously, Purdy has responded beautifully. Just forget about it and move on, which a lot of quarterbacks can't do. Gain of a yard there from CMC, but we got a flag on the play. Less than 2 minutes to go here in the first quarter, in a very even matchup, maybe the most even matchup we've seen on Sunday night all year. We obviously saw one of the games of the year on Thursday night a few days back between the Hawks and the Rams. And I mean, look at all the injuries they've had. Purdy, Pearsall, Kittle, Bosa, Warner. And again, the Buccaneers have been banged up as well, but they have elite coaching in San Francisco. The Buccaneers do not. They're going to fire everyone. So again, even though you may have names like Baker Mayfield and Bucky Irving and Rashad White and Sean Tucker and Mike Evans and Chris Godwin and Emeka Egbuka and, Kate Otten, it doesn't matter if your offensive line isn't playing well. On top of not having a defense and the coaching just being piss poor. I would be so ecstatic if I had Shanahan and Saleh as my coaches in Tampa Bay. I mean, those are the type of guys that I need. Shotgun set, Purdy to the right end there, getting about 4 yards. Montez Sweat, the former Eagle, with the coverage. First down and 10 at the Chicago 33. First down, Bears, move the chains. And off to run CMC, and bouncing off that left side, but nothing there. Andrew Billings brings him down. Nice tackle there by the defensive tackle, Billings. Second down and 11 at the Chicago 34, and that's going to wind the clock down. And that is the end of the first quarter, 14-14 all. Let's go. Fun game. Shout out to my boy Brooks Beats with the best beats on YouTube. And if you're just tuning in to the broadcast, first play of the game, Brock Purdy tipped in the air. TJ Edwards says, thank you very much. 34 yards to the house, 7-0 Bears. Then Brock Purdy responds immediately. Going to Jake Tongas for a 1-yard pass from the 1, 7-7. Bears and Niners tied up. Then Brock Purdy with a 10-yard rush. Eddie Pinheiro kick is up and good. Niners take a 14-7 lead there in the first quarter. And then obviously at the very end there of the first, Luther Burden the third, 35-yard pass from Caleb Williams, knotting it up at 14-14 all. So again, you're seeing a little bit of everything, with this matchup between the Bears and the Niners. A little bit of defense, a little bit of offense, a little bit of the running game. And again, a very well-balanced Bears team going against a Niner team that could end up being first in the NFC, depending on if they win this game and beat Seattle next week. End of the first quarter, 14-14 all. Man, I mean, we're fucking terrible. We haven't had a good game in 2 months. So again, we were good in the first month, month and a half of the season, even though we've had a lot of injuries. But, we're bottom 3 in defense. In some statistical categories, we're last. So again, I'm not used to seeing a team that's normally known for defense, and we have a coach that is supposed to be defensive oriented, but I think that he lost the locker room. So Bowles is fired, get rid of the OC, start over. But again, the offensive line, obviously besides Tristan Wirfs, who didn't play today, we need more. And obviously the defense is terrible. We got Vita Vea, you got Levante David, you got Antoine Winfield Jr., Jamel Dean. You got a few guys that are pretty good, but you can't win with only 3 or 4 out of 11. But really the main problem is defense. And on top of that, not being able to stop the run, not being able to stop the pass. And then now recently within the last month, Baker has been throwing fourth quarter interceptions. And again, when you have that, that's going to destroy you. So even though we have a chance, to be able to win the NFC South and make the playoffs, I want to just to be able to win, the 5th NFC South crown. But again, they're a terrible team. They haven't been good in 2 months, and it would be probably better off if the Panthers make the playoffs. Honestly, they're going to be more entertaining to watch than the Buccaneers. Obviously, the offense for the Bucs is fun, but the defense is non-existent. Purdy, short right to Ricky Pearsall there for a nice 13-yard pass. First down, the Niners. Bang, bang, Niner gang. First down and 10 at the Chicago 21. And honestly, I haven't seen the defense, this bad in a long, long time. So I'm pretty sure regardless if we make the playoffs or not, they're going to fire everyone. So, and again, some of the pieces are getting old like Levante David. And again, we're going to need a lot to be able to kind of get back to where we were. That's for sure. Hand off to Christian McCaffrey off that left guard and a nice 16-yard run. And they are creeping into the end zone here. First and goal at the Chicago 5. They are knocking on the door. And obviously we know the Steelers and Ravens aren't really that great at this point of the season either, but both of those teams are better than Tampa at this point, and we'll find out. It'll either be the Ravens or the Steelers getting in, Buccaneers or Panthers next week, and I'm kind of excited to be able to see what happens with the Niners and Hawks and who's going to be the number 1 seed. NFC West was the best division in football by a landslide. 3 teams that are all Super Bowl contenders. We haven't seen that in quite some time. And, Niners, Rams, and Seahawks are all legit. And I can't wait to see how it all shakes out. Halfback toss there. And touchdown run, CMC. Christian McCaffrey making it look easy peasy, lemon squeezy. Extra point incoming and good. 21-14 San Francisco. And again, when this team is on, again, it's going to be a tough team to be able to match up with. And we know the Rams match up well. The Hawks match up well. Obviously, when you go to that next tier, the Bears match up well. But the Buccaneers, the Panthers, not so much. So we will see. And the same thing goes with the Packers as well. Obviously, they're kind of on a downward slide. I would probably put the Packers in the same category as the Chargers. You're going to get into the playoffs, but I don't think anyone anticipates them winning a game. Same thing with the Steelers and Ravens. You might make it, but you're not winning a game more than likely, even if you're hosting a playoff game. And same thing with the Bucs and the Panthers. You can get in, you can host a playoff game, but you're probably not fucking winning, unless, a miracle happens. 13:44 left in the second quarter, 21-14. San Francisco. And even though these two teams have defense that could have played similar to the Bills and Eagles game today, I'm actually kind of excited that we still got a pick 6, but we're seeing offense, and then, there's going to be a time and a place where you can have a low scoring game and you can still have fun watching it. But I think where a lot of us, most people are offensive oriented. So they're going to want, a 42-41 final if they can get it. And then obviously, depending on if you have the roster good enough to be able to defend, like the Bears with the pick 6, it's kind of nice to be able to get some defense, but also, to get some offense as well. And, for both of these teams, it could still be like a 3-3 score or like a, 7-3 or a 10-7. I'm pleasantly surprised, that we're at that 21-14 game. And again, we'll see what adjustments are made by Ben Johnson and the Bears, depending on what the score is as we enter half. And Kyle Shanahan and Robert Saleh, we already got 1 pick 6 for the Bears. I wouldn't be shocked if Caleb gets picked at some point in this game, and it could be a pick 6 as well. 21-14 Niners. Like, sub, donate, comment, share. If you haven't smashed that like button yet, please do. Help us get to 100 likes, 100 on that dono train. And 5 to 15 subs. 21-14 Niners. Christian McCaffrey doing Christian McCaffrey things. Not surprised one bit. and that probably won't be his last touchdown unless he ends up getting hurt. You know, McCaffrey's one of those guys that can easily score 2 to 4 touchdowns by himself on any given day. And then tomorrow we got the Rams and the Falcons. Probably will take Tuesday off unless I end up doing USC's bowl game for the Alamo Bowl. That might be the only thing that we might be able to do. And then obviously as we transition later in the week, obviously we'll have a few other college football playoff opportunities as well. But we will be doing Miami and Ohio State, obviously on New Year's Eve, and then on New Year's Day, Oregon and Texas Tech. So I'm definitely looking forward to both of those matchups as well. Pinheiro kick, 65 yards, and that's going to be a touchback. First down and 10 at the Chicago 35. And let's see if Ben Johnson can find Caleb in a nice rhythm and to see if he can end up getting another touchdown here. Going from 28th in points a game to 10th. You know, it shows you how good Ben Johnson truly is. And again, you know, Caleb is nowhere near being as good as, you know, Jared Goff. And again, it's very exciting to be able to see, you know, if you do have an elite coach, an elite play caller, how much of a difference it really does make. First down and 10, handoff. Monengai. Wow, look at the speed and the jukes. Jair Brown with the tackle, the safety for the Niners, but not after. A nice 18-yard run by Kyle Monengai. First down and 10 for the Chicago Bears. Wow. Swift and Monengai. Wow, what a nice 1-2 combo. Obviously, it hasn't really been the same since David Montgomery went from the Bears to the Lions, but they're figuring it out. Little screen pass. And a nice 11-yard pass to Monengai, who shows that he can not only run, but he can also catch. First down, Bears. Move the chains. Impressive. Went to Rutgers. And I love being able to see 7th-round picks like Monengai be able to, show that they can play. You know, not everyone is going to be a, first-round pick in the first 5 or 6 rounds. And sometimes, it looks like you're not going to get drafted, but then you do late, and you just got to make the most of every opportunity that you have. Flag on the play, free play here for Caleb. Go deep, Caleb. And he does. Touchdown, Bears. Wow. Colston Loveland, the tight end with the tutty. And if that's offsides on the Niners, this game is tied. Wow. And that's offsides there. That penalty is declined. That looked like Aaron Rodgers in his prime on Green Bay. Extra point incoming. And good. 21-21. And again, we already know that Purdy, has the ability to do things like that. But it's shocking to see a guy like Caleb Williams, where we saw him last year with bad coaching. And, definitely, I wouldn't say he looked like a failure for a first pick in the draft. But again, he's looking like, the USC, standout, rather than the player that we saw last year. And again, it shows you how important a good play caller and a good coach truly is in Ben Johnson. Extra point up and good. And again, I know Caleb has gotten his confidence back, which he may have lost last year. And now, like I said, even though we feel the Niners might be the better team, between these two teams, it's again very, very close. I mean, the margin of error is only going to be so slim. There's a reason why, both teams are 11-4. And again, if you ended up watching the Black Friday game with the Bears going into Philly and winning that game based on running the ball and playing great D, you're kind of seeing the opposite here. You're seeing Caleb throw the ball, and they were able to get good D. So again, the Bears are showing, that they can win the game by running the football and playing great defense with Swift and company and Monengai. They also can win and be competitive by throwing the ball with Caleb, which really wasn't the case last year. But now Ben Johnson has given him the confidence and the playbook to really maximize his true potential. And he's looking like a number one pick this year. And again, very impressed. 21-21, Bears and Niners. And again, we know that these teams have defense, but again, it's an offensive showcase so far, besides the pick six first play of the game, obviously. But I'm loving every minute of this. 21-21, Bears and Niners. Incredible. One of the more entertaining games we've seen all year. And again, just like if we end up getting the Jags and the Texans, if they were on, let's say tomorrow, I assume that it would be very similar to what we're seeing, in today's game as well. A little bit probably lower scoring in that particular game with those two opponents, especially with Houston's D, but very entertaining to say the least. Santos kicks 58 yards. Sky Moore with a nice 20-yard return. Homer and Hardy with the tackle. And that's going to be first down and 10 at the San Francisco 28. Yeah, beautiful freak play. And, good decision by Caleb of, going to the end zone instead of just going for like a free check down. Again, you always want to make sure that you're going in the end zone on a free play, because what do you have to lose? It's a free play, right? The defense jumped off sides. So even if they pick it off, it's still going to be your ball. So good decision there by Caleb. Shotgun set, McCaffrey up the middle, and looks like he gets about 4 yards there. Billings and Dexter with the tackle for Chicago. Second down and 6 at the San Francisco 32. I mean, it may come down to whoever has the ball last, but I don't think anyone is surprised about what the Niners are doing without George Kittle, but I think that the Bears playing like this on the road is eye-opening. But again, when I watched the Black Friday game when they were on the road in Philly and won, I knew that this team was legit and they had a chance to win the division, at that point. And again, even though, you normally don't see teams going from worst to first and looking this good in 1 year, they are legit. Shotgun set, short middle to Jake Tonges, filling in for George Kittle. Nice catch there. And a quick hurry up here, handoff to Christian McCaffrey. And that's a nice 3-yard run. Second down and 7 at the San Francisco 45. And the Bears may, need a few more turnovers in the second half. I'm not sure what the chances of them getting another pick six or a fumble for a touchdown is. Probably not super likely, but, based on the talent that they have on that side of the ball, it's possible. But it's also possible, too, that Caleb throws a pick six in the second half. That could also happen as well. Sky Moore going off that left end with a nice 10-yard gain. Joe Tryon-Shoyinka, the former Buccaneer, with the tackle. First down, Bears. Move the chains. The Bears. First down and 10 at the Chicago 45. First down, Niners. .9:41 left in the second quarter, 21-21 all. And we'll see if the Niners will be able to punch it in the end zone again. It's 12 noon. You know what time it is. Time for a sack lunch. Yum, 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 yum. Purdy can't run away from Austin Booker. And again, when you go under center and you're running that play action bootleg, you got to be able to make a decision, and hesitating just slightly, Booker says, "Thank you very much. I'll take that sack." Second down and 17 after that sack lunch at the San Francisco 48. Roma Dunzier is loving that on the sideline. Beautiful sack lunch. Shotgun set. Purdy, short middle to Christian McCaffrey. And almost getting the first down back. 14 yards. Edmonds with the tackle. Third down and 3 at the Chicago 38. And again, with the Niners, they can have a bad play and they can just erase it from their memory, the next play. And that's the benefit of having a guy like Christian McCaffrey. No matter how bad the loss is with the sack, or if you fumble the ball and land on it and you're, second and long, third and long, when you got a guy like Christian McCaffrey, he can end up making up the yardage within 1 or 2 plays. And now we have third and manageable after that 14-yard pass from Purdy to McCaffrey after him taking the sack. And it's 3rd and 3 at the Chicago 38. And timeout, Niners. 8:12 left here in the second quarter as the play clock was winding down. 21-21 all. Fun game, man. I get everything that I want in this game. We get defense with the pick six, first play of the game. We're getting an offensive showcase from Brock Purdy and Caleb Williams, which is surprising. And again, you're getting people involved like Luther Burden III and Colston Loveland instead of guys like maybe DJ Moore, who is playing, and Rome Odunze is not since he's injured. But it's great to be able to see them spread it out and spread it around. And Rome Odunze has got a foot injury, so that's why he's not in. And his estimated return is potentially next week. Shotgun set. Purdy going deep to Tonges, filling in for George Kittle today, and that is incomplete. Not really sure why you would go deep on 3rd down and 3, but 4th down and 3 at the Chicago 38, and we will see what they decide to do here. Long field goal, or if they decide to go for it. I mean, when you got a guy like Christian McCaffrey, you would assume 3 yards is nothing, but we'll see if they respect the Chicago defense here and try to go for a field goal, a long one at that, or if they decide to, run it with Purdy or to be able to run or throw it with McCaffrey. They decide to go for it here on 4th down. Figured they would. Shotgun set, Purdy, short middle to Ricky Pearsall. 1st down, Niners. Bang, bang, Niner gang. 14-yard pass on 4th and 3. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. 1st down and 10 at the Chicago 24. Impressive. I mean, it just feels like touchdown after touchdown after touchdown after touchdown. I mean, we're pacing for each team to be at 42 points, before this one is over. And I mean, if we can keep, adjustments aside, after halftime, I mean, who knows what the score is going to be before this one is over. And I really do hope it comes down to whoever has the ball last. Hand off to McCaffrey off that right tackle for about a 4-yard gain. Montez Sweat, the defensive end for the Bears, with the tackle. 2nd down and 6 at the Chicago 20. Mike in the building. What's good, brother? We got a really good one here today. No one ever is surprised when Brock Purdy balls out and throws for 3, 4, or 5 touchdowns in a game. But for Caleb Williams, he looked pretty rough last year. And with the addition of Ben Johnson, who really did make the Lions, an elite team, joining the Bears this year, he's done the same thing. And again, you can never underestimate great coaching and great play calling. Shotgun set. Brian Robinson Jr. getting about 4 yards there, bouncing off one tackle, but not the next. And now it's going to be 3rd and manageable. 3rd and 2 at the Chicago 16. And we assume McCaffrey will get another opportunity here. Less than 6:30 to go here in the second quarter in a really good one. Tied up at 21 all. Bears and Niners. I know I wouldn't want to play either one of these teams in the NFC or the Jags or Texans in the AFC, especially if you're one of those top 3 teams. Patriots, Broncos, Bills, they don't want anything to do with the Texan defense or the Jags. And obviously the Texans seem like they may be the stronger team, but we'll find out. And then obviously with these Bears and Niners, Seahawks, Rams, and Eagles are great. But if they slip up or play bad, definitely these two teams could upset the top three. There's no doubt about it. McCaffrey up the middle on a 7-yard run. Quick hurry up and another handoff to that right side. Loss of 2. And now it's going to be 2nd down and goal at the Chicago 11. TJ in the building. What's good? Got about 5 minutes to go here before half, and a very electric game here between the Bears and the Niners. Niners could still end up being a 1 seed if they win this today and beat the Seahawks next week. Chicago obviously won the NFC North, going from worst to first. It's a great story, for both of these teams at this point. No one expected the Niners to catch up to the Hawks or the Rams, but, here at the end of the year, here they are. And again, it's really impressive, especially with really a no-name defense for the Niners, and they're still able to compete with pretty much anybody in the league, and that's because of elite coaching by Robert Saleh and Kyle Shanahan. Very impressed. Wish I had those two guys on my team. Shotgun set, Purdy, short left, to Jawan Jennings getting his first target. No, second target of the game, and a nice 4-yard pass. 3rd and goal at the Chicago 7. And obviously, they're missing George Kittle. The Tongas has actually done pretty well, up to this point. We'll see where they decide to go. 3rd and goal. Plenty of time. Back of the end zone. And intercepted. Let's go. Let's go. And again, when they should have went to McCaffrey, they decided, to throw the football. But there is a flag on the play, and that's going to be on the Bears. Uh-oh. Illegal use of hands. Penalty on C.J. Gardner-Johnson. Oh, my. Oh, my. After C.J. Gardner-Johnson, we know he loves to talk trash no matter what team he's on. Oh, brutal. And just when you think that the Bears are going to be able to come up with another big play like the pick 6 in the first play of the game off a tip, that one is going to come back. Very rare when the individual gets the penalty and comes up with the pick, but let's see if the Bears can bear up here or bear down. McCaffrey off that left side, and Edmonds says not today, no gain. Brisker came in there late as well. Nice tackle. 2nd and goal at the Chicago 3, and instead of going with some crazy passes and whatnot, run the ball in with Purdy or hand it off to McCaffrey. There's no time to get cute, especially when you have 2 masterminds calling plays. I mean, honestly, you got 2 of the top 3 in the NFL calling plays right now. So that's why this is a showcase. And obviously we'll see the 3rd tomorrow in Sean McVay. But to me, these are the 3 best play callers in the NFL. But also Seahawks with Kubiak, he definitely deserves a little mention. He's been fantastic for Seattle this season as well. But as far as like consistency, year in and year out, again, there's a reason why we have those as the top 3. 3:27 left in the second quarter, and a good one. Niners are knocking on the door, 21-21, and it feels like it's about to be 28-21 in just a moment. Like, sub, donate, comment, share. If you haven't smashed that like button yet, please do. Help us get to 100 likes, 100 on that dono train. Still looking for our first dono for the night and 5 to 15 subs. Let's get it, baby. Shout out to my boy Brooks Beats with the best beats on YouTube. All right, take it easy, Mike. Second and goal at the Chicago 3. RPO with Purdy. And there we go. Touchdown, Niners. And again, I can kind of get into Shanahan's head and understand what he's thinking. And again, Purdy is a guy that, can run very, very well for his size. And 3-yard touchdown run. Perfect play. You assume it's going to McCaffrey. Purdy can keep it. All the attention is on CMC. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. Touchdown, Niners. Extra point is up and good. 28-21. San Francisco. And that's the benefit of having the best running back in the game when he's healthy, as far as being all around back. Now, we know Saquon was fantastic last year. Jonathan Taylor was, good this year before the injury, but again, with all that being said, I think most people, if they had a choice of picking one running back on the team for their favorite team, McCaffrey would probably be the top choice in most people's lists. He does get injured quite a bit, but when he's healthy, God, he's incredible. 28-21 Niners. Nice job by Brock Purdy there. And if you're just tuning into the game, I can give you a quick recap for TJ and others. So the first play of the game, Brock Purdy threw a pass. It got tipped in the air. TJ Edwards ended up coming down with it and took it to the house. 34 yards, 7-0 Chicago. Then Purdy ended up having a deep pass to Demarcus Robinson to the 1. Pass to Jake Tongas, who's filling in at tight end for Kittle, who's got an injury with the ankle. 7-7 early in the first quarter. Then Brock Purdy keeps it himself with a 10-yard rush. 14-7 Niners. Then Caleb Williams with a deep 35-yard pass to Luther Burden III, making it 14-14 all. That was shocking. Then McCaffrey with a 5-yard rush, making it 21-14. And then off a offsides, free play for Caleb Williams. He decided to go deep, 36 yards to tight end Colston Loveland, making it 21-21. And then we just saw Brock Purdy run the RPO that I mentioned, and they took the lead 28-21. Fantastic game. I mean, I do love defense, but again, I like to be able to watch a game that has defense, but also showcases some great offense as well. And that's exactly what we're getting here today. Crazy how we are getting to the new year. So close, 2025 about to come to an end. Makes you kind of wonder, if Talanoa Hufanga and Dre Greenlaw were still on the Niners, and if Nick Bosa and Fred Warner didn't get hurt, how much better that Niner defense would be. It's scary. .323 left in the second quarter, 28-21 Niners. And Duvernay with a decent return there. Flag on the play. Offensive holding after that Pinheiro 65-yard kick. Duvernay. Well, 30-yard return, but offensive holding there on Homer. So that's going to be first down and 10 at the Chicago 20 instead of the 30. First down and 10. Caleb Williams scrambles off that right side. Only gains a couple. 2-yard gain. D. Winters, the linebacker for the Niners, with the tackle. Second down and 8 at the Chicago 22. And let's see if the Bears can tie this up before we get into half. And again, after, the beginning of the year, primetime games were fantastic in September. They weren't the greatest in October and November, but it feels like in December, we're getting back to the games like they were at the beginning of the year. And that's definitely going to lead to a lot of excitement as we get, obviously, to the playoffs. Shotgun set, Swift off that right tackle for a 9-yard gain. Bryce Huff, the DN for the Niners, with the tackle. First down, Bears. Move the chains. First down and 10 at the Chicago 31. Now we are ticking down to the 2-minute warning. 28-21 Niners. Crazy. 49 points in the first half. I don't think I've seen a game like this all year. Oh, Law and Order crossover event. Oh, I'll watch that. 28-21 Niners. First down and 10 at the Chicago 31 here momentarily. Like, sub, donate, comment, share. If you haven't smashed that like button yet, please do. Help us get to 100 likes, 100 on that dono train. And 5 to 15 subs. Let's get it, baby. Shout out to my boy Brooks Beats with the best beats on YouTube. $49 points combined. Fantastic. Even though I'm a defensive-oriented fan, I love games like this when it's back and forth. Oh, I appreciate that, Andrea. Shotgun set. DeAndre Swift off that right tackle for a 3-yard gain. White and Collins with the coverage. Second down and 7 at the Chicago 34. And let's see if Caleb Williams can find a way to tie this game up before half. At the very least, trying to get a field goal, but we haven't seen the kickers even attempt a field goal up to this point. It's been all touchdowns. 49 points combined, and we're playing the 49ers. Weird. Shotgun set. Caleb, short right to Colston Loveland, who has a touchdown earlier in the game, incomplete. Third down and 7 at the Chicago 34. I appreciate anyone that will share on Twitter/X, Instagram, Facebook, or just the YouTube posts that we have through the community section. Anything that can help us grow is greatly appreciated. Most people will know me as, play-by-play for the Mariners and the Ducks, but obviously we do a little bit of everything here, with the NFL, Sunday night, Monday night, Thursday night, including playoff games as well. Shotgun set by Caleb Williams, short right to Loveland, and complete. Third down and 7 at the Chicago 34. Shotgun set. And he's getting chased, and he just has to throw it away. Incomplete. And it's going to be 4th down and 7 at the Chicago 34. great stop there for the Niners. And with 1:21 left, I highly doubt that they're just going to kneel it and just, be satisfied with a 7-point lead. They're definitely going to try to be able to put up a field goal or a touchdown before half. Even with 1:21 left, they can run the 2-minute drill, and we'll see what we get here with special teams with Sky Moore. And Torrey Taylor, 57-yard punt. And great coverage there by Jones. No gain for Sky Moore, which is unusual. Normally he's getting about 10 to 30 yards per return. But great coverage there by the Bears. And now they're going to make it a little bit longer for the 49ers. They're going to have to start at the 9. So they're going to have to go 91 yards in 106, which may not be possible. But if they get like 60 yards, 60 or 70, that could put them in a chip shot range for a field goal. So we'll see if they decide to go deep or if they decide to hand it off and just be a little conservative with McCaffrey here. (28-21) Niners in one of the best games on Sunday night all year. And again, I've been waiting on this one for weeks, and it definitely is delivering, no doubt about that. And some. .106 left in the second quarter as we're waiting for the commercial break to end. We'll see if the Niners are able to pour it on right before half. All right, let's see if Run CMC can keep dominating this matchup. And timeout Bears. After that 2-yard gain on first down and 10. Oregon, like a lot of other teams, doesn't play well at, 9 a.m. So I am concerned. We could definitely lose that game. Texas Tech is pretty good. So, and again, it's on neutral turf, obviously being in Florida. So I hope we win, because again, if Oregon loses, I want us to be able to lose against, either Indiana, but preferably, getting at least to the Natty, and then, Georgia or Ohio State. Obviously, I want to, try to be able to go all the way as a fan, but, it's a tough test. And if we get past Texas Tech, then it's Indiana, realistically, after they beat Alabama, you would think. And then if you can get to that point, you'll be in the championship versus Georgia or Ohio State, which I assume would be Ohio State in the bottom part of the bracket. But, we'll have to wait for these games to be played out. But I hope I'm going to be streaming the game. So, hopefully at 9 a.m., they'll get the job done. And then the previous night, we'll end up doing Ohio State and Miami. And we assume that will be a blowout for the Buckeyes, but, it'll be a chance to be able to kind of see what they're about at this point in the year. And McCaffrey up the middle, just short of the marker. And second timeout called here by Chicago. Now 3rd down and 2 at the San Francisco 17. I mean, I feel that, player for player, we're better than them. Our offensive line is good. Dante Moore is great. We're hopefully going to get back a few of the other individuals that have been hurt at the wide receiver position. Defense is better this year than last year's team. So we'll see, and again, a lot of those teams that ended up having the bye last year all lost. They're not going to all lose this year, and it feels like it's a little bit more competitive, in the college football playoff this year compared to last year. And we'll see what happens. But at the end of the day, to have one of the 4 teams be Oregon that could win the Natty is exciting. Indiana and Ohio State have to be at the top, and then Georgia and then Oregon, are going to be like the underdogs, but could do it. So we'll see. 3rd down and 2. And Purdy underneath. 1st down, Niners. Clock is still ticking down. Shotgun set. Purdy short left to Christian McCaffrey. And that's going to be 1st down and 10 at the San Francisco 33. Previous play was DeMarcus Robinson. And now you're getting down with the Niner timeout. And let's see what we have here. All right, 1st down and 10 at the San Francisco 33. Shanahan calls timeout. Got about 12 seconds left, and they're looking to see if they can get a field goal up with Pinheiro before halftime comes around. But I would assume that, game will be very close. And again, anyone that ended up watching the JMU game, Oregon pulled their starters in the second half, and there was a lot of 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th string guys playing, and that's why JMU scored so much. It wasn't just the starters played bad. So anyone thinking that, the defense got exposed, they weren't playing their starters. So, but the rest of the way, Oregon will. Obviously when you're going against Texas Tech, and then possibly Indiana, and then Ohio State or Georgia. Shotgun set, McCaffrey up the middle for 17 yards. And that's going to be halftime. Not enough, there to be able to, McCaffrey gave you the yards, but just not enough time to get everyone lined up, and still too far away for a long field goal, especially at that point anyways. 28-21, we're at halftime. 49 combined points for the Bears and the 49ers. Would have not predicted that, but that's why we love the NFL. I'm going to go over some of the highlights as well. Like, sub, donate, comment, share. If you haven't smashed that like button yet, please do. Help us get to 100 likes, 100 on the dono train. Still looking for our first dono of the night, and 5 to 15 subs. Let's get it, baby. Yeah, plus it gives, the Oregon defense some experience just in case there is an injury. So for guys that haven't played in, 3, 4, 5 games, that they'll get a few more snaps. Well, they didn't play well, when they were out there. They played bad. But again, if you're not playing really all year and you get thrown out there, you hope to do well. But sometimes just that lack of experience and, being freshmen and, some guys, maybe sophomores, just not, getting a whole lot of time out there. But, at least it gives them a chance to make a memory, even though they did get burned quite a bit by JMU's offense in the second half. And ultimately we won. But again, the strategy that we had with JMU, it was only for JMU. Now moving forward, you're not going to see backups in Texas Tech. You're not going to see backups in Indiana. And you're definitely not seeing backups if Oregon makes it to the Natty against Georgia or Ohio State. So, I think that it was concerning, live when we were watching. But when I went back and watched the tape and was looking to see what starters and backups were in, it was very, very clear, that they pulled the starters in the second half, and that kind of makes sense. Now, obviously, if they played their starters and then JMU played like that, then obviously that would have been very, very concerning coming into this Texas Tech game. But, Lanning is a smart guy, and again, I feel like in college football, that's the place to be. We're on the cusp, of trying to be able to win a Natty. And again, we know that Ryan Day is great, and, we obviously know that Kirby Smart, is a great coach as well. And again, Alabama doesn't have Saban anymore, so they're not really in the same category as those other two schools from years past. But Indiana with Cignetti is fantastic. He's been able to turn that program around in just a couple years, and I'm up for the challenge. I want to be able to go with the hardest path, even though we've had an easy path within JMU and Texas Tech. But once it gets to Indiana and then possibly Ohio State or Georgia, you want to play against the best to prove that you belong. And if it was my choice, I would want JMU, Texas Tech, and I want the two best teams. I want Indiana and I want the Buckeyes in the Natty, so that way we have a chance to get revenge on what they did to us last year in the college football playoff in the Rose Bowl. That one still stings. And obviously getting revenge on Indiana that came into Autzen this year and beat us. That's our only loss this season. And again, they're a top 10 offense, defense, and special teams. And we saw Indiana even win the Big Ten championship over Ohio State. So you have to assume Indiana is, number one, Buckeyes are 2. And then most people, if you want to put Georgia at 3 and Oregon at 4 for the likelihood of winning it all, fine. And again, it's just nice to be in the conversation. And hopefully, in this Dan Lanning era, if he's willing to stay for the next 5 to 15 years, realistically, if he keeps recruiting the way that he is, with all the other perks that Oregon has to offer, it's pretty possible, that we could end up making a natty or 2 in his tenure. And hopefully we can win at least one of those. And we may not win the first time that we go with him, Dan Lanning, but, I feel like if you have that structure, knowing that that coach isn't going anywhere, that's definitely going to help the program build and build and build compared to possibly going to a school where that coach may or may not be there in a few years. But we will be doing the Ohio State-Miami game, obviously the night before, on New Year's Eve, and then obviously 9 a.m., which is not ideal, for the Ducks or really myself streaming-wise that early, but I'll have to wake up super early to make the thumb unless I do it the night before. But I'm looking forward to it, and, hopefully they can start fast and, have a great second half strategy to be able to get the dub, and I assume the game will be close. Yeah, that's the way that, we would want it, as Duck fans and Pacific Northwest fans, like when the Huskies played Michigan, I know the rivalry between Oregon and Washington is very serious, but I know there was, Oregon fans, including myself, were hoping that Washington would play well in that game. And again, with JJ McCarthy and Harbaugh, they ran the football well, played good defense, and it just wasn't enough. So, again, it's not easy to be able to win a championship when you're from Oregon or Washington. But again, one thing about the teams in Oregon and Washington is like it may take a little while to build it. But once it's built, usually it's pretty good for a few years, and then you just got to take advantage of those opportunities that come your way. And, even if it takes a couple years to be championship worthy, it's very difficult to be champion at the end of the day with all the competition, from these other schools like Indiana emerging, Ohio State just being amazing. And then obviously Georgia still kind of hanging around, even though they may not be as good as they were from a few years ago. But that's what I want. JMU, Texas Tech, Indiana, and give me the Buckeyes. I want payback. If it ends up being Oregon, Georgia, and the Natty, we could get payback on them as well. If you go back to like the, Herbert Bo Nix era, we haven't been able to beat Georgia either. So obviously getting payback on them, in, previous games would be nice. It seems like anytime, we match up with teams like that in the past, we were just too small. We didn't have the proper players, up front on the O-line and D-line. We were, most of those guys were 50 to 100 pounds heavier. We were fast and we had speed, but that only can win you so many games, especially when you're going against guys that are 300, 350, 360 on the line. And, now we have guys like that. So it feels like with the NIL and everything else with college football, it's more of an even playing field for like the very first time. We still know there's only going to be 4 or 5 teams out of over 100 that could actually go all the way and win it all. But it just feels like it's not going to be Alabama or Georgia or Ohio State. It feels like, in a few years mixed in, it could be like the Clemson year or the LSU year with Burrow and Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson, instead of just being, Bama winning it 3 years in a row, or Georgia winning it, back to back. It feels like there's a little bit of parity, not as much as the NFL, but it definitely feels like there's a few teams like Indiana and Oregon, if they can capitalize, they may end up being, college football champions sooner than later. And it could even be this year. And I'm really hoping for a chance for payback. We got about 4 minutes left before halftime, and it's been a good one, 28-21 Niners. I'm going to go check up on my here real quick. And the Bears are going to receive the second half kickoff, which is great for them since they're down by 7. So let me go check up on my pup here real quick, and I'll be ready for the second half. All right, we got about a minute left before we get back into the second half. 28-21 Niners. Bears are going to receive the second half kickoff, and we'll see if Caleb Williams has anything left here in the second half. Brock Purdy has played well, and Christian McCaffrey is every fan's dream. No question about that. Time of possession has been wild. 21:56 for the Niners, 8:04 for the Bears, and the Bears are only down 7. And imagine if they didn't get the pick six, at the beginning of the game, then this game may be 28-14 or maybe even less than that. So, shout out to the Bears of, competing on the road like they did against Philadelphia, a different type of game. That was more of running the football, And, Eagles couldn't stop them, and then the defense was excellent. They found a way to win that game today. They're running the football, but not as effectively on this Niner defense, but they are throwing the ball pretty well with Caleb Williams. And, again, they're down by 7, and the second half kickoff is going to start here in just a few seconds. Man, it's too early, at this point. I mean, I think at this point, Seahawks, Rams, Eagles, Niners, Bears, obviously Bears would probably be a long shot, to represent. And, we obviously know the Packers, Panthers, and the Buccaneers are not good enough, and then same thing goes with the Chargers, Steelers, and Ravens. And then you got, the Bills and the Broncos and the Patriots, the Jags, and the Texans. So, when you have an elite defense, like the Broncos and the Texans do, they're going to have a chance to be able to ride that defense, pretty far. But, it's kind of too early. You got about 10 teams, right now, out of the 14 that'll be in the playoffs, you got about 10 that could make the Super Bowl, and could get to the NFC, AFC championship game. And I'm not sure if we've had that many at this point in the season in the NFL in a while. So we'll see how it goes, but we're definitely getting a fantastic matchup here tonight on Sunday Night Football, 28-21 Niners. I mean, if the Niners are able to do it, they've definitely failed, many times after the Joe Montana, Steve Young era. And, they had Kaepernick and you got Purdy and whatnot, but, we'll see. I'm not sure if the Niner defense is good enough, to be able to get all the way to that point and win it all. But again, they're very well coached with Robert Saleh and Kyle Shanahan. So you never know. Now, obviously, if Dre Greenlaw, Talanoa Hufanga weren't on Denver and they were still on the Niners, and Nick Bosa and Fred Warner didn't get injured, I would feel a little bit more comfortable with that prediction, of them being able to, try to go all the way or, get to the Super Bowl. But if you look at their defense, it's a lot of no-name guys. So, again, at some point, if you go against a team, that's got a good offense, you're going to get exposed. And, you got to hope that you can continue to play well with Purdy and McCaffrey and Kittle and everyone else. But we also can't predict injuries from now until then, and we know the Niners have been banged up quite a bit. But one advantage they do have is they have maybe arguably the best, offense defense setup with coaches, with Shanahan and Saleh, controlling the team. I'm not sure if you have a better, combo of those two guys in the entire league. Caleb Williams, first down and 10, short left to Durham Smythe. And that's a 10-yard gain. Bethune there with the tackle. First down and 10 at the Chicago 45. Durham Smythe with the catch, the third tight end there. I mean, the Texans got the best D-line in football with Danielle Hunter, right, and Will Anderson Jr. So, again, and then I feel with Denver, they got some good linebackers in secondary, but again, if you have a great D-line, that's going to affect the game more than any other position on the defense as far as position groups. Getting sacks, pressures, and also stopping the run. Shotgun set, Caleb. Short middle to DJ Moore. Nice 8-yard pass. Mustafa for the Niners there with the tackle. Second down and 2 at the San Francisco 47. And it's not likely to be able to have two teams in the Super Bowl that don't have defense. I mean, normally when we're, talking about Super Bowl teams, usually, both of them have defenses. So we will see. It's going to be very interesting to see how it all play out. Handoff to Kyle Monangai. Nice 5-yard gain. Upton Stout, the corner for the Niners with the tackle. First down, Bears. Move the chains. I mean, Texans are more dangerous to me than the Jags or the Chargers and the Ravens and the Steelers. And again, if CJ Stroud can be consistent with that defense, they may be able to overachieve and, beat an opponent or two. Whether that be the Bills, the Broncos, or the Patriots, it, definitely seems possible, especially if those amazing defenders don't end up having any injuries on the D-line. They also have Derek Barnett as well, so they got a kind of a three-headed horse. And Monangai off that right tackle for a loss of 2. But, you know, with the Texan D-line, they're the only team that's got 2 guys on the D-line with 10-plus sacks. So, again, when you got, you know, players like that, you know, where some teams don't even have 1 guy even close to 10 sacks, and you got 2 guys over 10, it really does make a difference. And on top of that, having Derek Barnett, you know, who can end up getting sacks in a game as well, very dangerous. Shotgun set, Caleb Williams, short right to Luther Burden III, who got in the end zone earlier today. Loss of 2. They're going in the wrong direction here. 3rd down and 14 at the San Francisco 46. All right, Caleb, what do you got cooking here? You know, injuries and momentum. You know, that's going to really be, because it's not always the number 1 or number 2 team in the NFC, AFC that make the Super Bowl, as we know. So, you know, like look at the Detroit Lions last year. You know, everyone anticipated them going to the NFC Championship game against the Eagles or going to the Super Bowl, and then they couldn't even beat the Commanders. So sometimes you don't want to overestimate the opponents. You know, they might get hot and healthy at the right time, like the Commanders did with Jaden Daniels last season. Shotgun set, Williams deep right to Jade Walker, complete. First down, Bears. Nice 19-yard pass by Caleb Williams. Caleb going short left to Luther Burden III. Beautiful 24-yard pass, and now it's 1st and goal at the San Francisco 3. First down, Chicago. And it shows you, you know, when you have a mastermind of offensive play calling like Ben Johnson, how much of a difference it makes with him not being in Detroit and seeing the Bears going from worst to first. And again, definitely, you know, deserves consideration of Coach of the Year. You know, both coaches, you know, based off all the injuries with Kyle Shanahan and the Niners, and still potentially being able to win 11, 12, 13 games on the year. And then the Bears going from worst to first. Very impressive. Handoff to Kyle Monangai, and that's only a 1-yard run up the middle. 2nd and goal at the San Francisco 2. Like, sub, donate, comment, share. If you haven't smashed that like button yet, please do. Help us get to 100 likes, 100 on that dono train. And 5 to 15 subs. Let's get it, baby. And again, Caleb can run it in himself. You can run an RPO with him, you know, and again, you know, kind of do the Brock Purdy thing. But again, I'm not sure if they feel that comfortable with Caleb running in the end zone or running like an RPO type of style. Shotgun set, short middle to DJ Moore. And I don't like that play call at all. You would have been better off running an RPO with Caleb and him trying to get in the end zone himself. You know, stop passing the ball on the 2-yard line. Run the ball. Right, you got 2 running backs and Monangai and Swift that can get in from the 2, and you can also get in with Caleb Williams. 3rd and goal at the San Francisco 2, and let's see if Ben Johnson can dial up the right play here for Caleb Williams. Third and goal. Touchdown, Bears. Beautiful play there. They decide to run the ball, and listen, 2-yard touchdown run by DeAndre Swift. Beautiful. 28-27 Niners. Extra point is up and good. And just like that, 28-28 all. And it kind of feels like whoever has the ball last is going to win this game. And again, I don't know if we're going to, get into the 50s and whatnot in this game, but very, very entertaining first half and a very entertaining good start to the beginning of the third quarter. Yeah, and even though I'm kind of more of a defensive-oriented fan, I don't want to watch a game that's 6-3. I want to be able to, see points scored off turnovers like the pick six at the beginning of the game, and then I want to be able to see some special teams, and I want to see some offense. And again, sometimes when you end up having a low-scoring game, you can still have fun, based off the turnovers, or if it's a sloppy game, or just a competitive game like the Bills and the Eagles. But, when you get a score where it's almost like every single offensive possession you're anticipating a touchdown, like today's game, that can definitely be the most exciting football that you can get. The defense sprinkled in with the high-scoring offense. And again, I don't think anyone anticipated this was going to be 28-28, but I did expect it to be close, 11-4 versus 11-4. And for all the people that thought the Bears were, quite a few pegs lower than the Niners, again, you're starting to see that the Bears are, definitely one of the sleeper teams, like the Niners, like the Jags, like the Texans. They're getting hot at the right time. And if the media wants to keep talking about the Seahawks and the Rams and the Eagles and the Broncos and the Patriots, and those top tier teams, so be it. And the Bills, we know, the teams that are going to get the love by the media, but sometimes being under the radar, and kind of no one's talking about you, and the underdogs, like the Commanders last year with Jaden Daniels, sometimes you can get hot and healthy at the right time and, surprise a team that is heavily favored over that particular team. I watch a lot of college football, but I did not get a chance to watch a lot of the bowl games earlier, this weekend. And today. But typically I'm watching quite a bit. But I was out and about today. But it does sound like a game that I would have enjoyed watching for sure. Usually during the regular college football season, I'm usually watching 3 to 4 full games. And then during the NFL, on Sunday, usually the same thing. A morning game, an afternoon game, Sunday night football, and then usually one that might be like recorded that I'll watch later. Santos, 65-yard kick, turns into a touchback. First down and 10 at the San Francisco 35. All right, time for Brock Purdy and Christian McCaffrey to see what they can do here against the Bear defense. Shotgun set, Purdy going deep to Kendrick Bourne, caught! First down, Niners. First down and 10 at the Chicago 40. Man, it's back and forth with these two teams. Yeah, but the difference between the Bills and the Ravens and the Bears and the Niners, the Bears and Niners actually have defense. Bills and Ravens don't. You know what I mean? So it's like the Bills can't stop the run, but they're pretty good in the secondary. The Ravens aren't good at defense at all. So again, of course, you're going to be able to get high scoring when the defenses don't exist, It's like, it's just based on, like Lamar or Josh Allen, but in this particular game, you actually do have defenses out there. But again, at the beginning of the year, the games were good. And then when we hit October and November, primetime games were kind of shitty. Sunday night, Monday night, Thursday night, besides the occasional, special game. And then I feel like the games have gotten better here in December. Christian McCaffrey off that left tackle for 4 yards. And a quick hurry up to Christian McCaffrey off that left end for a 6-yard gain. Deshaun Wright, the corner for the Bears with the tackle. Good to see him back in the game after him getting injured in the first half. First down and 10 after that 6-yard run by CMC at the Chicago 30. All right, we're at 30, 20 more to 50. Doge in the building. Grizzard needs to be fired. Bowles needs to be fired. Our defense is bottom 3 in the NFL, in some categories dead last. 32 of 32. And it doesn't help that Baker is throwing interceptions in the fourth quarter, where he hasn't lost us every game, that we played here late in the year. But obviously him getting picks late in the game when the defense can't stop anything, it's not a good formula. So, but at least we have a chance after that check down goes to use check. And that's going to be 2nd down and 2 at the Chicago 22. Again, the Panthers, would be more deserving. The Buccaneers haven't played good football in 2 months. Like, I haven't seen, this team play this bad, in a long time. So, if they decided to fire Bowles and Grizzard, bring in, somebody that can kind of save us at some point or another. I mean, there could be a few names that will be out there. But if we could end up getting like Clint Kubiak, from the Hawks, make him our head coach, have him call all the offensive plays, take Baker to the next level, and then get a defensive coordinator like a Robert Saleh to come in to solve all those problems on defense and to be able to have some fucking pride on that side of the ball. That's what I'm kind of looking for. We're going to need an offensive genius, and it's not like we're going to be able to get Ben Johnson from the Bears. We're not going to be able to get Sean McVay from the Rams. We're not going to get Kyle Shanahan from the Niners. So those are the top 3 play callers, besides maybe Kubiak this year. So if we can get Kubiak and then get a great defensive coordinator, then maybe we can kind of get back to playing Buccaneer football. But again, we've seen Liam Cohen, who is a pretty good play caller and then has gone to the Jags and has done a good job, obviously, with Trevor here lately, even though they weren't very good against the Colts earlier today. But overall, Liam has been able to, get Trevor to be a little bit better, to be able to be more at his potential. Same thing with Ben Johnson and Caleb Williams, where if you got bad coaching or bad play callers, you're only going to be able to go so far with this natural-born talent. But when you have the talent like Baker does, and you have a great, mentor and coach and a great play caller, it can definitely take you to a whole nother level. So, we don't deserve to, get in, and it's going to come down to the Steelers or Ravens. Whoever wins gets in. Buccaneers and Panthers, same thing. And then if the Niners win today and they win against the Seahawks next week, they'll be a 1 seed. So there's still a lot on the line, between seeding and who gets in and who gets out. But we can definitely tell at this point the Packers aren't doing anything. The Panthers aren't doing anything. The Buccaneers aren't doing anything. And then on the flip side, the Steelers, the Ravens, and the Chargers more than likely aren't doing anything. So for those bottom 3 teams, that are fighting for a spot, or, the teams that are going to be like that 6 and 7 seed, I wouldn't expect a whole lot, out of these teams this year. But as far as the top 5, in each conference, AFC and NFC, you got 10 teams that potentially could be in the NFC, AFC championship game. And, again, a few that could end up being in the Super Bowl as well. Yeah, I did see that because they get the tiebreaker and whatnot. So, but that, yeah. Well, the Falcons, if they win, the tiebreaker would still go to the Panthers. So even if the Falcons win out, there would be a 3-way tie, but then the Panthers would still be in. So, and I don't think the Falcons are winning tomorrow, against the Rams. So, but again, you never know what version of Kirk Cousins and Kyle Pitts. I mean, if they play like they did against the Buccaneers, yeah, they'll have a chance against the Rams, but I highly doubt that will happen. But we'll find out tomorrow when we do the live stream. McCaffrey with a 5-yard run. 1st down and 10 at the Chicago 17. But again, college football playoff is going to be exciting. The NFL playoffs are going to be exciting. We just got to pray that there isn't any major injuries to any superstars or key role players the rest of the way, which is impossible. But, no one can handle a major injury here late in the year, especially if you're a contender. And Tonga's there with the catch, but there's a flag on the play. We haven't seen a whole lot of holding calls, and that's going to be defensive offsides, believe it or not. 1st down and 5 at the Chicago 12, and it just feels like it's inevitable that the Niners are going to get in with a touchdown here momentarily. Yeah, the Godwin TD was nice. And again, it's like, Ibuka was great as a deep threat, right? But they're not going to him deep anymore, and again, you have to understand the strengths and weaknesses of your players. Jalen McMillan's getting a few looks here and there, but again, I think the play calling is a big problem, on the offense. And then on top of that, the defense is terrible. It's not ideal. At least we have guys that are fun to watch, like Baker and Bucky Irving and Evans and Godwin and Cade Otton and McMillan and Ibuka. So it's like we got guys that are fun to watch, but at the end of the day, Wirfs didn't play. That killed us. Offensive line, not good enough. Defense stinks. And obviously, Baker throwing picks late doesn't help either. McCaffrey off that right side. And Dexter is there. No gain. 2nd down and 5 at the Chicago 12. Gained another sub before that commercial break. Shout out to all the new subs that we've acquired. And Purdy, short left to Brian Robinson Jr. with the screen. Look at the power for the small back. 1st and goal at the Chicago 6. Bang, bang, Niner gang. And again, Brian Robinson Jr. was a great pickup for RB2 for the Niners. The former commander, it definitely is very solid to back up Run CMC. Yeah. Again, these two teams are, getting hot at the right time, just like the Jags and the Texans. So, but you got to think the Texans got the best D-line in football. So when you got Derek Barnett, who's a threat now, and then you got 2 guys with over 10 sacks and Will Anderson Jr. and Daniil Hunter, that's going to cause the most impact. Touchdown, Niners. Juszczyk in there. Purdy, a magician. And again, making it look really easy there. 34-28 Niners. But again, if you end up having an elite D-line, it definitely will make it much harder, to be able to throw the football, run the football, and you're getting chased all day. So, again, the Texan defense, to me, like the Broncos got a good linebacking core and secondary. We know Nick Benito is great and Patrick Surtain, but I feel like if you got an elite D-line, that makes more of a difference than having an elite linebacking core and secondary. I feel that those things are great for Denver, but the Texan defense with that D-line really is the most dominant to me. It makes it more difficult for the offense when that D-line is so good, and they are by far the best D-line in football. So it's just really, I don't even think it's really the question about the Texan defense, is can CJ Stroud play well? And if CJ Stroud can kind of match the defense, the Texans could make the AFC Championship game and knock off a few teams. But we just don't know, since CJ got hurt early in the year. If CJ was playing like he was as a rookie, they could make the AFC Championship game and legitimately would be one of the contenders to make the Super Bowl. But right now, we just don't really know, how good CJ can be at this point in the season. But, it definitely gives him an opportunity, to show that, hey, if we got the best D-line in football and I play well, maybe we can knock off, the Bills or the Patriots or the Broncos or the Jags and find our way into the AFC Championship game. And honestly, I think that they have a very good chance of doing that. As long as they don't have any injury to Will Anderson Jr., Daniil Hunter, and Derek Barnett, formerly of the Eagles, if those 3 guys stay healthy, the rest of the way, they're going to have a chance. Purdy to Juszczyk for 6 yards. Extra point is up and good by Pinheiro. 35-28 Niners. And we just assume Caleb Williams is going to march down the field, and it's going to be 35-35 here in a moment. Yeah, but every week, it's going to be a little bit different. Weather is going to be a factor, home or away. Like look at the Eagles and the Bills. There's going to be times where those two teams play where you might get a score in the 20s or 30s. And then there's going to be time where the weather is bad and, you have turnovers and whatnot, where you end up getting a game like today where, both teams are scoring under 15 points. So depending on, the time of year, where the game is being played, weather, that can really determine a lot. So it's not like if the Bills and Eagles played 10 times, that 9 times out of 10, it's going to be low scoring. So, it really is going to be exciting to be able to see, who ends up getting, that first round bye, because getting the 1 seed is going to be critical, on being able to go on a deeper run rather than having to go on the road. But again, we have seen some of these teams like in the NFC West with the Niners, Rams, and Seahawks that can win on the road. So even if you end up not getting home field and you got to go on the road, Niners or Hawks, that doesn't mean that they're not going to be able to get to the dance and on a deep run. So nice job by Brock Purdy. 35-28 Niners. And it's like, we saw the Eagles, play, pretty well today, taking advantage of Josh Allen and some mistakes. But again, remember, the Bears played the Eagles on the road on Black Friday, the day after Thanksgiving. They ran the ball really well, played good defense, and they won. And, the Eagles knew the Bears were running the ball, and they still couldn't beat them. In this game, it's more passing. So now the Bears are kind of evolving where they can run and they can pass. And again, offenses, for the Niners being explosive is no surprise. But again, the Bears going from worst to first, Purdy going for 3, 4, 5 touchdowns, no one blinks an eye. But if Caleb Williams does that, it's kind of a shocker, even though he's a first pick in the draft. There was some flaws in his game with his delivery and just being coached up. And obviously getting Ben Johnson was the best thing that could have happened, for a team to go from worst to first. And it really does show, if you have a mastermind at play caller and head coach, it can really take you places. Handoff up the middle. And DeAndre Swift with a 5-yard run. 2nd down and 5 at the Chicago 25. Caleb Williams, short middle to DeAndre Swift. And a nice 10-yard pass there. Bethune and Stout for the Niners with the tackle. 1st down, Bears. Move the chains. Yeah, I don't think you should be surprised ever when the Niners, Seahawks, and Rams play each other. That's the best division in football, and obviously anything can happen. And if it wasn't for some weird, 2-point conversions, 3 of them, again, that's never happened before. So obviously the Seahawks got a little lucky, but it really all started, with the special teams touchdown. And when you end up getting a special teams touchdown, that was really the beginning. And again, if that doesn't happen with Rashid Shaheed, they don't win that game. Handoff to Swift and runs into CJ West, the D tackle for the Niners. 2-yard run. 2nd down and 8 at the Chicago 37. Caleb Williams, shotgun set, going short right to DJ Moore. Incomplete. 3rd down and 8 at the Chicago 37. And normally when you go to DJ Moore 4 times and he only has 1 catch for 7 yards, you're probably not at 28 points. But again, Ben Johnson has been able to restructure this offense to make everyone a threat. And we'll see if DJ can get in the end zone before this game is over. Yeah, they didn't really deserve to win that game, and sometimes you got to take chances and whatnot, after getting beat up that whole game. The Eagles dominated that game, pretty much the whole way until the very end where the Bills were threatening and, they caught up, but, we'll see where it goes. Sometimes a loss at the end of the year is good, to be able to understand what you need to do to get better, and the weather wasn't very good as well, like you mentioned. Caleb Williams deep left to Luther Burden the third. Nice 27-yard pass. 1st down, Bears. Lined up in the neutral zone for the Niners. That's going to be declined. And again, if you go to Caleb and what he was able to do in his rookie year, he didn't look very good and was looking like he was going to turn into possibly a bust if the right coach didn't come along. But thankfully they got Ben Johnson, and Now Caleb, he's nowhere near being a top 10 quarterback, but if Ben Johnson ends up staying there, for 5 to 10 years and he can coach Caleb up, it's possible that Caleb can turn into a top 10 quarterback, especially based on what we've seen here today. Yeah, but also the Seahawks lost to the Niners, the Buccaneers, and the Rams. So, even though we haven't played good football in 2 months, it's not necessarily what you've done at the beginning of the year. It's what you've done lately. It's not how you start necessarily. It's how you finish. And Swift off that right guard, loss of 2. Tatum Bethune there with the tackle. Quick hurry up, shotgun set. Caleb Williams, short left to Jade Walker. Nice 11-yard pass, close to a first down. 3rd down and 1 at the Niner 27. I mean, statistically speaking, though, they're bottom 3 and also last in certain categories on defense. So I don't know how we're going to be able to beat the Panthers at home, if that continues. It's going to take a miracle. And obviously, I don't want to see the Buccaneers get stomped in the playoffs by 20, even hosting a playoff game, or more. But, I do want to win the 5th NFC South crown, but I don't want to get embarrassed on the playoffs either. But, if you are the Ravens or the Steelers or the Chargers or possibly the Buccaneers, the Packers, or the Panthers, there's a good chance that you will get embarrassed. Offensive holding there on the Bears, which we haven't seen too much here today. And that's going to 10-yard penalty. 3rd and 1 turns now into 3rd and long. 3rd and 11. Yeah, all of the Seahawks losses have been 5, 4, and 3. And that's really impressive, right? And normally they couldn't win on the road. They've proven that they could do that this year. You have Kubiak, so obviously the offense has improved. Offensive line used to be bottom 3, like the Buccaneer defense right now, and now they're in the middle, like 15th or 16th on the offensive line. Defense got much better as well. So again, it shows you if you can have the right combination of players and the right coach or coordinator, it can really take you to new levels that you never even dreamed of. The Seahawks probably are a year or 2 early, but they've been able to figure it out. Shotgun set on 3rd down and 11. Caleb steps up in the pocket and is trying to run for the first down, kind of runs into his own player there. Gross Matos there with the tackle, and that's going to turn into 4th down and 5 at the Niner 31. Yeah, 4, 3, and 2. I believe those were the losses. Yeah, 4, 3, and 2. Not 5, 4, and 3. 4, 3, and 2. Yeah, week 1, week 5, and week 11. Your boy remembers. Shotgun set, Caleb Williams. Short middle to Colston Loveland, the tight end. 9-yard pass. First down. Bears, move the chains. Yeah, it's crazy how it ended up being 4, 3, and 2. Niners, losing by 4, then 3 against the Buccaneers, and then 2 against the Rams. But you did get payback on the greatest Thursday night game, this season, especially with those 3 2-point conversions. But also Rashid Shaheed getting that special teams touchdown. If that doesn't happen, like I mentioned earlier, you don't even get to that point. And that's going to be the end of the 3rd quarter. First down and 10 at the San Francisco 22. Both of these teams can't stop each other. Luckily, the Bears got a pick 6 on the first play of the game. But Brock Purdy is looking unstoppable here, but they may need to be able to, get another big play in the 4th quarter if they're going to win this game. Yeah, but also watching games, if you're ranked bottom 3 or dead last on defense, based on what you've watched, if you've actually watched the games like me from beginning to end, you can tell that, Bowles and Grizzard, they lost the locker room like weeks ago. We haven't played good in 2 months, and then every time we feel like we're getting a little bit better, then we have an injury to someone big like Tristan Wirfs, or the defense, underachieves. And it's like, you got Vita Vea, you got Levante David, you got Antoine Winfield Jr., you got Jamel Dean, but again, we're just always out of position. We're not tackling well. We can't stop the run. We can't stop the pass. So yeah, getting to the playoffs, it can, turn things around if you have the right personnel and coaching, but the Buccaneers don't. Bro, this is the worst team that we've had in a long time. And again, I would assume that, they're going to fire everyone after this, regardless if we make the playoffs or not. That's the right move. I don't want to see Grizzard or Bowles on this team next year. Get Clint Kubiak in there, try to get a Robert Saleh, turn this shit around, and then maybe we can get the best out of the team. So. There's contenders and there's pretenders. Unfortunately, the Packers are pretenders, even though they got in, right? The Panthers and Bucks are going to be pretenders, and again, the Panthers might actually have the best shot of doing something, even though they didn't look very good today, but normally their defense is pretty good, but Bryce Young is kind of a work in progress still, obviously, as we know. And then on the AFC, Chargers are pretenders, Steelers and Ravens are pretenders as well. So when you get those, bottom teams, I don't expect a whole lot, but out of the top 5 on each, they could end up making the Super Bowl or going to the AFC NFC championship game. Whether you're going with the Seahawks, Rams, Eagles, Bears and Niners, the 5 on the NFC, or if you're going with the, Broncos, Patriots, Bills, Texans, and Jags. It kind of feels like those are the only 10 teams that are going to be able to go on a deep run. As far as the Packers and Chargers, we know Jordan Love got banged up and whatnot, but I just don't think the Packers and Chargers, even though they've been pretty good this season, they just don't have enough. And then obviously at the very bottom, Ravens and Steelers, Bucks and Panthers, it's just, not good enough here. DeAndre Swift, touchdown, Bears. 22-yard run at the beginning of the fourth quarter, and this one is special. Wow, 35-34. And we're going to get an extra point here momentarily to be 35-35. I mean, I knew our defense was bad, but I didn't realize that in almost every defensive category we're, 30th, 31, or 32nd, and that's not good when we haven't played good football in 2 months. Extra point is up and good. 35-35, Bears and Niners. Great game, which I knew it would be. But again, at least that we're one of 2 teams that have gone to 2 Super Bowls and won both with the Ravens. So, obviously the first one, with Sapp and Brooks and Simeon Rice and John Lynch and Rondé Barber and Mike Allstott will always be the most special. But getting, Bruce Arians and then having, Brady and Gronk and fly like a butterfly, sting like AB, and we got our second. That was special, to win in Brady's first year. And if AB wasn't so immature, maybe we would have been able to go back to back. But, just too many injuries, at that point, with, Godwin and AB leaving and, it's, just not enough to be able to overcome that Rams team that ended up winning it all. But what could have been if AB wasn't so selfish, 14:54 left in the fourth quarter, 35-35. We have a tie. Chief O'Chief in the building. What's good? Santos kicked 63 yards. And Sky Moore with a nice 29-yard return. He's been a good fit there in San Francisco. Bears win tonight, win Week 18 against Detroit, which is definitely possible, and a Seattle loss against the Niners could happen. And then the Niners win tonight and win against Seattle, which could happen. So, it'll be very interesting to see if it ends up being the Seahawks, Bears, or Niners as the 1 seed. Purdy, short left to Ricky Pearsall, 8-yard pass. Second down and 2 at the San Francisco 39. Like, sub, donate, comment, share. If you haven't smashed that like button yet, please do. Help us get to 100 likes, 100 on the dono train. Still looking for that first dono here on the stream. We're in the fourth quarter, which is a little unusual, but hopefully we'll get a few people to step up and support. And we're looking for 5 to 15 subs. Let's get it, baby. Still got 14 minutes to go to be able to get some support here on the channel. Second down and 2, hand off to McCaffrey, and a little cutback. First down, Niners, move the chains. But you got a flag on the play, and it looks like that's going to be offensive holding, which we haven't really seen a whole lot, called here in this matchup, which is nice. Dominic Pooney, the guard there with the hold. Second down and 12 at the San Francisco 29. Shotgun set. Purdy scrambles towards that left end and getting chased down by Tremaine Edmonds, the linebacker for the Bears. Third down and 7 at the San Francisco 34. But again, it's a great matchup for me because I love Ben Johnson and his play calling. I love Kyle Shanahan and his play calling. And then we get another great play caller tomorrow, there in Sean McVay going against the Falcons. So we don't expect that game to be as competitive as this one, but, we'll see what version of Kirk Cousins and Kyle Pitts will get tomorrow against Sean McVay. Shotgun set. Purdy on 3rd and 7, and Ricky Pearsall is there. 20-yard pass. First down, Niners. Bang, bang, Niner gang. Right there with the coverage and the tackle, but not after that big first down. First down and 10 at the Chicago 46. I mean, just when you think one of the defenses is going to end up getting a punt of some kind or another, these teams and the way they build their offenses, very impressive. Shotgun set. Purdy going deep to Ricky Pearsall, incomplete. Second down and 10 at the Chicago 46. Second down and 10 with about 12 minutes to go here in the fourth quarter. 30, hands off to Brian Robinson Jr. and only about 3 yards there. Getting bear hugged by Dexter. Third down and 7 at the Chicago 43. Shotgun set. Purdy going to Juwan Jennings, incomplete. That's going to be 4th down and 7 at the Chicago 43. And again, are they going to punt it here or just go for it? And again, the way that this game has gone, it's like, you may not get, a complete pass on a play or two, but I mean, I would assume in normal circumstances, you just punt. But the way that both these teams have been playing, it wouldn't really shock me if you end up, going for it on 4th down. Now, if obviously you're on the, your 50, you're going to probably want to punt. But if you're on their 50, it's kind of up to you at this point. And they decide to go for the punt. And that's fair caught there by Duvernay. First down and 10 at the Chicago 11. All right, Caleb. Let's see if you can find a way to, get into field goal range, or if you can go for a touchdown and take the lead. I'm not too sure. 11:23 left in the fourth quarter, 35-35 all between the Bears and the Niners. All right, Chicago. I mean, you were able to win on Black Friday on the road against Philadelphia, which was super impressive in kind of a different way. Running the football at will. Philadelphia knew the run was coming and still couldn't stop it. And then the defense was great and found a way to win. This is kind of the opposite, where you're getting more, Caleb airing it out. And it's kind of a pleasant, thing to see, because, again, last year he didn't look very good. But again, sometimes, getting the right coach and the right play caller really does make all the difference. Shotgun set, Caleb short right to Luther Burden III, and a nice 25-yard pass. First down, Bears. And that's a great first down play. And again, great to be able to see lower name individuals, find a way to be able to be an impact player. First down and 10 at the Chicago 36. And hopefully DJ Moore will be able to get in the end zone for Chief Will Chief in the fantasy playoffs or championship. Caleb scrambles towards that left side, getting about 3. Jason Pinnock there with the coverage and the tackle, the safety for the Niners. Second down and 7 at the Chicago 39. Shout out to my boy Brooks Beats with the best beats on YouTube. I mean, I'm not really necessarily a fan of a lot of the players on the Bears offense, but I do love Ben Johnson. And again, Detroit thought they would be completely fine without him. Apparently not. And the Bears go from worst to first with a guy that should be one of the front runners of Coach of the Year, no doubt about that. I mean, obviously Vrabel, is in the mix. Ben Johnson's in the mix. Kyle Shanahan's in the mix. There's about 5 coaches, that can get the award. But for the Bears to go from worst to first, that definitely deserves, some, consideration. And obviously with Vrabel and Josh McDaniels going from 4 wins to where they're at now, very impressive as well. Maybe the 2 most impressive, based on what the teams did last year and what they're doing this year. One from the NFC, the Bears, and one from the AFC with the Pats. Caleb running up the middle for a nice 3-yard gain. Tatum Bethune there for the Niner linebacker there with the tackle. First down and 10 at the Chicago 48. Move the chains. Yeah, I mean, I've been a Bucs fan since 95, and, I'm not giving up. I'm just going to be realistic with the expectations based on what I've seen. I watch every game from beginning to end, and I have for many, many, many years. So I just wish the defense was better than, they have been this year, but, hopefully we can find a way to beat the Panthers and get in. Caleb going deep to Colston Loveland. Caught! Wow, 32-yard pass. First down, Bears. And again, people thought the Bears were crazy to pick Colston Loveland before, going with Tyler Warren on the Colts. And people were like, what the hell are they doing? But Colston Loveland obviously has a good rapport and connection, with Caleb. And obviously you have to trust Ben Johnson, and again, some guys are going to be better blockers. We know Tyler Warren is great, but Colston Loveland, showing that, hey, Tyler Warren gets all the press, but I'm pretty good too. Nice job. And we got to delay a game here on the Bears. That's going to bring them back 5. First down and 15 at the San Francisco 25. I mean, it's his first year. They already got rid of Chip Kelly, but again, Gino was effective, with the Hawks based on the supporting cast. All they have is Brock Bowers and Ashton Genty, right? They got, Fulton Miller on the line, one guy, and then you got Max Crosby, right? And that's it. So again, it's like they have a lot to improve, and if you fire, Pete Carroll, then all you're going to do is bring in another guy who's going to get fired the next year, and that's going to continue, unless you're able to get, someone like a Ben Johnson, Kyle Shanahan, type of guy, or even like a Kubiak, but even if you got a Kubiak and a play caller, you need more than what you have with just Gino Genty, and obviously with Brock Bowers. So, it's a very thin roster. I wouldn't want to play on the Raiders or the Jets or the Browns, and that's why I hope Dante Moore for the Ducks comes back to Oregon, even if we win the Natty, because realistically that probably won't happen. But, Fernando Mendoza and Dante Moore on the Browns or the Jets or the Raiders, no thank you. You go to the Jets and Raiders, you're fucked. But, we'll see. Monangai off that right guard for a 4-yard gain, second down and 11 at the San Francisco 21. Late flag comes out. Yeah, and I'll never give up, just like you, Doge. I'm never going to give up on the team ever. I'm always, going to root them on and whatnot. And, I just want to be, I'm a defensive fan too. So to be able to see a team that normally is known as defense and then is like one of the worst, it's shocking, but again, it's just been progressively getting worse and worse every game for like 2 months. It's kind of crazy that we're still in the mix to actually make the playoffs. But, the only reason is because the NFC South is one of the 2 worst divisions in football, just like the AFC North with the Ravens and Steelers. So if the division was better, we would have been screwed a long time ago. So unnecessary roughness by the Niners. And we have Caleb Williams, short right to Colston Loveland for a 2-yard gain. Lenore with the tackle, second and goal at the San Francisco 8, and it just feels like we're moments away for another Bears touchdown. Yeah, usually he does very well against the Panthers, and usually when we play each other, we split no matter what the record is, typically. So less than 7 minutes to go here in the fourth quarter. Every big play and every big mistake will be magnified. Especially with both of these teams, looking for the number 1 seed with the Seahawks. So again, you want to definitely be at home rather than, being like that 5 seed and being on the road. But, all 3 teams, Niners, Bears, and Hawks, can play very well on the road, and they've proven it this year. Caleb. And Monangai there with a little shovel, loss of 3. Davis with the tackle, third and goal at the San Francisco 11. You haven't gone really too much to DJ Moore. Could this be the time they finally go to DJ Moore and take the lead? We'll find out. I agree. Anytime you end up being, 8-9 or 9-8, it's embarrassing, but I guess, somebody's got to make it, right? Shotgun set, Caleb going to Monangai, and incomplete. just overthrew him. Luckily, that wasn't picked for a touchdown, for a pick six for the Niners. And now it's 4th and goal up the San Francisco 11, and you got to bring out the field goal unit. And we're finally going to get the field goal kicker out here, which he's kicked all extra points. Kick is up and good. Bears up by 3, taking the lead for the very first time since the pick six at the very beginning of the game. And they had a 7-0 lead, but they haven't led since then until now. But again, the moment I knew that the Bears really were trending in the right direction was against the Eagles on Black Friday. I thought they were a pretty good team, like the Niners, that weren't really being talked about. And again, they've been continuously getting better and better and better, as we're getting into the end of the regular season. And it's all about getting hot and healthy at the right time. And it's kind of crazy where we have 2 teams in the NFC with the Bears and Niners, 2 teams in the AFC with the Texans and Jags, who all could go on deep runs. And again, if you're a Seahawk, Ram, or Eagle fan, you feel confident with your teams. And if you're a Bronco, Patriot, or Bill, you feel pretty confident with your teams. Maybe a little weary if you're a Bill fan with how things have gone with Josh Allen in the last month. But we know typically in the playoffs, he'll be able to rise to the occasion with Cook and Allen. But, it definitely feels like it's up for grabs with those 10 teams, 5 in the NFC, 5 in the AFC. Normally, when we watch football, it's only like 2 teams in each conference that could go all the way. This year feels like a little different, where there's a few other teams that are, kind of bucking the trend, so to speak. And I love that. 10 teams that could go on a deep run, except for maybe the Panthers, the Packers, and the Bucks. And obviously, besides the Chargers, the Steelers, and the Ravens, and if teams were able to win games, you would assume it would be on the AFC side, like Chargers winning, Steelers or Ravens winning. It's probably not very likely the Packers, the Bucks, and the Panthers would win based on how they've been playing lately. But with that being said, you never know. Other teams could have key guys get hurt, or that could, play into the cards of the, team that is the underdog. .5:22 left in the 4th quarter. Bears taking the lead 38-35. Like, sub, donate, comment, share. Help us get to 50 likes before the stream ends. We're looking to get to 100 on the dono train. Still looking for some support. And 5 to 15 subs. Let's get it, baby. Every dollar counts. Shout out to my boy Brooks Beats with the best beats on YouTube. Yeah, and obviously the 3 matchups that are going to be the most important are going to be the Steelers and Ravens, who makes it to the playoffs, Buccaneers and Panthers, who makes it to the playoffs, and obviously Seahawks and Niners, potentially, depending on what happens here today. And then a lot of the other matchups are, just matchups. But at least we have a few games, that are going to decide who gets in and who doesn't, and then a few games that will decide position. And Santos kicks, 58 yards. Sky Moore scoops and picks it up. And a nice 18-yard return, 1st down and 10 at the San Francisco 25. All right, we'll see what Brock Purdy can do here late with Christian McCaffrey and the Niner offense. All it takes is one person to show love and support, and then we can get another. Hand off to Christian McCaffrey off that right tackle for a 4-yard gain. 2nd down and 6 at the San Francisco 29. Shotgun set. Purdy going short middle to CMC. Incomplete. 3rd down and 6 at the San Francisco 29. You haven't really seen too many sacks by either team at this point. Niners only have that one pick six from earlier in the game, and the Bears have 0 turnovers with Caleb Williams at quarterback, which is wild. Shotgun set. Purdy going to Jake Tonga's 7-yard gain. 1st down. Niners. Move the chains. 3rd down and 6 for the Niners. No problem. Now, if they could actually get some fucking pressure on these quarterbacks and get some sacks, then obviously we wouldn't have a 38-35 score, but less than 4 minutes to go here in the 4th quarter. Purdy, short middle to Christian McCaffrey for a 3-yard gain on 1st down. Edmonds with the tackle there for the Bears. 2nd down and 7 at the San Francisco 39. Second down and 7, and we got a penalty on the field, and that looks like it's going to be illegal use of hands. After the drop by Tonga's there, they get bailed out. And that's going to be 1st down and 10 at the San Francisco 44. Five more likes to 40. Still looking for our first dono on the stream, which is odd since we're in the 4th quarter, but I still have hope that we're going to get a little support here before this one is done. Bad penalty there by the Bears late in the matchup. They're hanging on by a 3-point lead, but will it be enough to win? Man in motion, Purdy, little play action, and they go right back to Christian McCaffrey. Uh-oh, big play down the sideline. Wow, that's a great play call by Kyle Shanahan. Short right to Christian McCaffrey for a nice 18-yard pass. 1st down, Niners. Bang, bang, Niner gang. Move the chains. Got about 3 minutes left. Niners getting themselves in good position for a field goal, but obviously they're looking for a touchdown. Appreciate you, Chief. Well, Chief, I figured someone would be able to show some love before this one's over. It's rare for us to go through a whole game without at least somebody showing some support. Shotgun set. Robinson off that left tackle for no gain. Jarrett and Robinson with the coverage. 2nd down and 10 at the Chicago 38. Appreciate you, man. And obviously when one person leads, then usually others will follow. Appreciate you. Stacks. Rex with a little cactus jack. Bang, bang. We're at 5:95 to go to hit the goal on the dono train. Appreciate you, Chief. Will Chief. Appreciate it. Purdy going deep, wide open. Juwan Jennings, he's got a block. Touchdown, Niners. Wow. And again, the Niners are so good, when they're flowing with Kyle Shanahan's offense. Perfect block there late, and now Chicago, is going to have to find a way. They're going to have to find a way to get a touchdown on this last drive in the game. 2-minute warning. They got 2:15 left. There's a chance that the Bears could win it, and again, 38-yard touchdown pass there from Purdy to Juwan Jennings. That was beautiful. And maybe we'll be able to get DJ Moore with a touchdown and a Bears win for your fantasy Chief will Chief. Chief will Chief's like, I'll do a dono train by myself. Appreciate you. Glad that someone appreciates the hard work and the, everything that I do here on the channel. Stacks, racks with a little Cactus Jack. Bang, bang. We're at 15 now. 85 to go. Appreciate you, brother. Means a lot. Just the basic things, to be able to survive, right? To be able to pay the internet bill, pay the streaming fee, take care of my dog. Appreciate you, my guy. Let's see if the sports gods will do you right here. And he's due for a look, and again, if they were to get a touchdown, because obviously when you're down by 4, the field goal does nothing for you, right? So they're going to have to get in the end zone. So, whether that end up being Colston or DJ Moore, and you got to remember Roma Dunzier is injured, so he's not available. But again, what a fantastic game here. Not a whole lot of defense besides the pick 6 early by the Bears. But again, if they didn't get that pick 6, then again, this game's over. So, it's nice to be able to see, that the Bears have one last shot to see if they can knock off the Niners here on the road. And we'll see what happens. But again, very impressive, by both teams. I already knew that this was going to be a great game. And, again, when you got teams that are on the outside looking in, everyone talking about the Seahawks and the Rams and the Eagles. Not a lot of people are talking about the Bears or the Niners, but they're legit. Everyone talking about the Patriots and the Broncos and as well as the Bills, but not a lot of people talking about the Texans and the Jags until recently. So it's nice to be able to see teams, get hot and healthy at the right time. And, you never know. And also, the Bears, Niners, and Seahawks are all battling for the 1 seed here. So still a lot of things that need to happen for some of these teams to get there. But, kind of exciting, that we have more teams that actually have a chance to make the AFC championship game, NFC championship game. So you got 10 teams that could get there, and then maybe 6 teams that could maybe make the Super Bowl out of the 10. But, it's definitely exciting rather than just only having 1 or 2 from each conference. And, that's great for, fans, and that's great for the NFL. All right, Caleb. I mean, if this was Caleb from last year, we're not even, in this same type of game. So we'll see where it goes here, but let's see if we can get DJ Moore in the end zone. TJ with a 5er. Appreciate you. There we go. Appreciate you, TJ. Another $5 holla. All it takes is one person to lead and others will follow. Stacks, racks with a little Cactus Jack. Bang, bang. And we go from 0 to 20 in a matter of minutes. Thank you. I appreciate it. And we'll be doing the Rams and the Falcons tomorrow. And then again on Tuesday, if we were to stream, it would be probably the Alamo Bowl with USC, but I haven't really decided yet. And then obviously we'll look at the schedule for, college football. We'll be doing Ohio State and Miami. And then after that, on Wednesday, then Thursday would be the new year in Oregon and Texas Tech at 9 a.m. So Pinero kick 65 yards. And now on first down, Swift up the middle for a 5-yard gain. Yetur Gross-Matos, the DN for the Niners with a tackle. Second down and 5 at the Chicago 40 for Caleb Williams. We'll see if Swift and DJ Moore can impose their will here late. And I'm very pleasantly surprised. I knew it would be a good game. Did not think it would be this high scoring, but I did think there would be points scored. And, we're due as fans of having games like this, late in the year. I feel like September was fantastic. October and November in prime time was a little bit of a letdown. And December has gotten back to the games that we had at the beginning of the year, and sometimes even surpassing those, like the Seahawks and Rams on Thursday night and this amazing matchup on Sunday night. And now we're down to the 2-minute warning. Second down and 5 at the Chicago 40. And let's see what Caleb Williams can cook up here. Crazy. You end up having a normal coach. You end up being in last place and your little brother forever. You bring in the right guy and then you end up making everyone around you better. It's just, crazy. Like I always say, everyone talks about having elite quarterback, running back, wide receiver, and tight end. But if you don't got a good O-line, D-line, defense, coaching, or play calling, it doesn't matter. But it's awesome to be able to see a team be relatively the same from the year before, besides draft picks and a few free agents. And then you bring in an elite coach, an elite play caller, and they can go from worst to first. And I guarantee even Bear fans are shocked on how well the season has gone in year one with Ben Johnson. And again, if he can keep on this kind of level, the Bears are going to have a chance to be at the top or second place in the division for many, many years, which is kind of crazy. The Vikings are, obviously having to rebuild, making the wrong draft pick with J.J. McCarthy. The Lions aren't the same without Ben Johnson. And the Packers are always going to be kind of up and down based on who they have and, what they are able to do year in and year out. So I know Kyle Brandt is happy. I know a lot of Bears fans are happy. It's been a minute since they've been good. 6 wins when trailing in the final 2 minutes of the fourth quarter for Chicago. Shotgun set. Caleb Williams going to DeAndre Swift. Incomplete. 3rd down and 5 at the Chicago 40. Well, I did put him on the thumbnail, so we'll see if we can get some late heroics by DJ Moore. So Caleb Williams, short right to DeAndre Swift. And that's defensive holding on the Niners. That's big. Jolly in the building. What's good? Hey, we both lost. We both look terrible today. Stacks. Racks with a little Cactus Jack. Bang, bang. The thing is I should have, been able, as a Buck fan, thinking that we could beat the Dolphins. Apparently not, and, that's what happens when you can't, have a defense that can stop anybody. But you guys playing the Seahawks, no one really expected you guys to win. And, it'll come down to, the last week of the regular season, and either you will get in with your Panthers or I will get in with Doge with our Buccaneers. So, let the best man win. First down and 10, trips left, shotgun set. Caleb looking for Colston Loveland, the tight end, batted down at the line. Wow. Collins there. 2nd down and 10 at the Chicago 45. But at least it makes that last week, something to look forward to. Same thing with the Steelers and the Ravens. At least that last week will mean something for, both of those two teams and our teams. Shotgun set. Caleb short right to DeAndre Swift. 6-yard pass. 3rd down and 4 now at the San Francisco 49. Timeout 49ers. And this is the play of the game here to see if the Bears have 2 downs to get 4 yards and, Obviously a field goal does them no good, nothing. So they have to get into the end zone and try to win this game 45-42. Yeah, and, I was looking up the rankings, Jolly. The Buccaneers are ranked in the bottom 3 in almost every defensive category. So, if we're dead last or 30th or 31st, that's not ideal. But we are at home, so I guess we have at least that going for us. But, it feels like it might take a miracle to get the job done. And, not only has the defense been horrible, Baker has been throwing picks late in games, and that's not going to equate to a victory. So, get rid of Todd Bowles, get rid of Grizzard, blow that shit up, get Clint Kubiak, try to get Robert Saleh. We need to just fucking build the whole coaching staff. Shotgun set. Caleb scrambling to that left side and getting the first down. First down, Bears. The Bears move the chains. Wow. Nice awareness by Caleb and having enough speed to hit that sideline. Great job by Caleb Williams. First down and 10 at the San Francisco 45. And, we're probably going to finally see, Caleb and Trevor Lawrence living up to being the number 1 pick in the draft, especially with Liam Cohen, who was the Bucs OC, wish he was still on our squad calling plays. He's definitely made a big difference with Trevor, and Ben Johnson has been a godsend for Caleb. No doubt about that. Shotgun set. Caleb going short right to Colston Loveland. Incomplete. Second down and 10 at the San Francisco 45. It's kind of crazy, where you can have these quarterbacks, even at, number 1 pick in the draft, where it kind of feels they're a little bit of a failure. They're not top 10 players. They're somewhere between 11 and 16 out of 32 quarterbacks. But when you get picked first, you assume that guy is going to turn into a top 10 quarterback. But you can't really say that for Caleb or for Trevor. But they are trending in the right direction with these coaches. Shotgun set. Caleb going deep to Cole Kmet. Incomplete. Third down and 10 at the San Francisco 45. 25 on the Dono train, 75 to go. I appreciate you, Chief Will Chief, on starting the trend. And again, I knew that others would follow. TJ and Jolly following up with that, and I appreciate it. We got 1:09 left. Third down and 10. At the San Francisco 45. Two of my favorite 3 play callers playing today, and the third is playing tomorrow, or coaching tomorrow, in Sean McVay. But I do really like what Kubiak has done this year for the Hawks, and hopefully he'll be the new Buccaneer head coach next year. I know we're going to be looking at him. Shotgun set on third down and 10. There we go. What a cutback. Wow. Luther Burden the third. My goodness. 14-yard pass. Did you see that cutback? Broke his fucking ankles. First down, Bears. Oh, man. I love seeing teams going from worst to first. I love seeing teams that are counted out, and to play this well in year 1 with a new coach. It's awesome to see. And a little check down there. And that's down to the 26-yard line. Second down and 5. Timeout, Bears. All right, we got 40 seconds to go. The Bears need a touchdown to win. And again, this is a team that can match up with anybody. Again, if you watch Black Friday, When they went on the road to play the Eagles, they beat them running the football and playing good defense. Today, it's more throwing the football and playing good defense for the most part. Even though we do have a 42-38 game, it feels like there hasn't been a whole lot of defense played. But remember, the Bears did get a pick six on the first play of the game, and that's kind of been their godsend at this point. Shotgun set, Williams going short right to Devin Duvernay, incomplete. 3rd down and 5 at the San Francisco 26. Not a whole lot of penalties, not a lot of holds, and again, that hasn't really slowed the game down, thank God. And not a lot of sacks, though, either. And again, only 1 turnover so far, the pick six, which is a little rare for both of these teams. But again, I'm very pleasantly surprised. They got 2 plays to get 5 yards, and they only need 26 yards to get into the end zone. I don't know. I think most people would say Fernando Mendoza and Dante Moore, but if they end up going to the Jets and Raiders, they're both going to be trash. Shotgun set. And blitz coming and dropped. Fuck. Luther Burden III had his hands on it. What happened to my hands? You got to come up big for your boy. And that's 4th down and 5 at the San Francisco 26. All right, we're down to the last play. Timeout, Chicago. And if you're Robert Saleh, what do? Do you bring the blitz, and try to end the game that way? Or do you try to play it safe and just play man or zone? I assume if you're the Niners, probably blitzing would be the thing that would get you the victory, even though that would leave you exposed a little bit. But, if Caleb is being chased down, he's not going to be as accurate. So this will be very interesting to see what Ben Johnson calls and what Robert Saleh calls on the defense here for the Niners. But even if the Bears lose this game, I think it opened up a lot of eyes for Seahawks, Rams, Eagle fans that you don't want to face either one of these two teams. Same thing goes for the Jags and the Texans. And I think the Texans have the upper hand over the Jags, even though the Jags have started to kind of turn the corner as well. But the one thing the Jags don't have that the Texans do is the best D-line in football. And again, when you got 2 guys over 10 sacks and Danielle Hunter and Will Anderson Jr. on top of Derek Barnett, the former Eagle, that's going to be very dangerous as long as C.J. Stroud can be healthy the rest of the way. All right, here we go. 4th down and 5. What will Robert Saleh do here? Call man, zone, and play, just kind of soft coverage? Or are they going to bring the house and bring the blitz? And we'll see what Ben Johnson has queued up here for Caleb Williams. Shotgun set. Caleb, short middle. Colston Loveland, caught. 13-yard pass. 1st down, Bears. Wow. Great job. They don't bring the blitz and they get burned. Robert Saleh, what are you doing? Wow. They bring the blitz. I think they win. And again, that's where you get paid the big bucks, deciding when you blitz on 2nd or 3rd down or 4th down. And now the Bears have the momentum, and it kind of feels like they're going to win. Again, that the only chance the Niners had, I feel, was right there. You bring the blitz, game over. More than likely, unless, the blitz comes and he's still able to complete this throw. But only rushing 4, that ain't going to do it. And where the hell is that defender in that zone right there? There's just no way in hell, Colston Loveland should have been that wide open. But again, they don't have Fred Warner. They don't have Nick Bosa. They don't have Dre Greenlaw. They don't have Talanoa Hufanga because those 2 obviously are on the Broncos and the other 2 are injured, but they could have used them right there. If Fred Warner was playing, that wouldn't have even been fucking completed. And that's the last time out there for the Bears. Shotgun set. Caleb going short right and complete. 2nd down and 10 at the Niner 13. But again, if Ben Johnson isn't calling the plays, Caleb isn't doing this. That's plain and simple. You watch what Caleb did last year. They were last place team in the NFC North, only able to win a few games. And again, play calling is everything. 2nd down and 10 at the Niner 13. Niner fan base screaming defense, but they're going to lose this game, I feel. Shotgun set. Caleb, Colston Loveland. Oh my, 11-yard pass. 1st down, Bears. And it's 1st and goal at the 2. Oh my, with 5 seconds to go. Oh, look at that trickery. Wow. And you get the spike guy, Caleb Williams there, second and goal at the 2 with 5 seconds left. What a beautiful play call there by Ben Johnson. And it shows you why Ben Johnson is such a good play caller, like Shanahan, like McVay, and also like Kubiak on the Seahawks this year. What balls it took to run that trick play at the end of the game with no timeouts. Are you fucking kidding me? Unbelievable execution and play call here by Caleb and the offense. Look at that. Unbelievable. The balls that Ben Johnson walks with. Incredible. Shotgun set. Caleb going to Jade Walker. Incomplete. Williams took way too long. Caleb is looking. And incomplete. And the Niners win. Wow. Terrible execution by Caleb there late in the game. You know, if he would have just thrown the screen pass early initially, that could have been possibly the game winner. But then, you know, after he was getting chased, wow. You know, that is a game that the Bears should have won, you know, based on where they were on the field and field position. And, you know, we know Caleb is raw and Caleb is young. But again, a little lucky, you know, there by the Niner defense that ball ended up hitting the turf, because that easily could have been a 45-42 Bear final. But again, you know, congratulations to the Niners. Now the Niners and Seahawks game next week is even going to be more critical for, you know, the number 1 seed. And now we got 3 games that are must-see TV. The Niners and the Seahawks, you know, for position. The Buccaneers and the Panthers to see who gets in the playoffs. And then the Steelers and the Ravens in the AFC North. Wow. You know, and again, you know, if you're a Bear fan, you got to feel a little cheated there that you got all the way down the field. And if Caleb would have just, you know, understanding the play clock and the awareness, you only have a few seconds, you know, and again, they had a guy open there in the screen, you know, probably should have threw it away immediately instead of trying to be a hero, you know, there at the end. But you live and you learn. Both of these teams look like they can do some damage in the playoffs. And, you know, Bryce Huff was able to get that, you know, uncomfortable feeling for Caleb and just kind of ran out of time, ran out of space. Wow, crazy game. And again, it definitely was one of the better games that we've seen here on Sunday night. So again, both teams played great football. Final score, Niners 42, Bears 38, and we will be live tomorrow for the Rams and the Falcons. So if you guys have a chance, come through and spend some time with your boy. Shout out to Chief Will Chief, Jolly, and TJ. Appreciate you guys. So that way that we end up getting to a decent number before this game ended. And I appreciate every single person that ended up coming in here, dropping a like as well. TJ, appreciate you. Chief, appreciate you. Jolly, appreciate you. And I look forward to hanging out with you guys tomorrow. And I got one question for you. Who you know talk sports like us? Your boy Ryan, Northwest Sports Fanatics. Final score, Niners 42, Bears 38. And I am out. Gang.